brothers and sisters of the Lord, we want to ask for special prayers for Miss Tanisha Johnson, who is a long-lost member that we just lost in the city today. We ask for your strength and your fortitude and your prayers for the family and for our work family as well in the city of Bay St. Louis to get us through this time of grief and this time of pain. Lord, we don't always know what your plan is, but we ask for the faith in you to better understand the plan, to provide the light that you intend for us, Lord, and be that rock and that foundation for the family members, for our co-workers, for everybody that Miss Johnson's life has touched in this world, Lord. We know our time on this earth is limited. We know that it's just an audition on this earth to get into the gates of heaven. So we ask that you comfort and allow us to see the beacon of light in Miss Johnson, to look down upon us. So Lord, we ask you for the strength, the fortitude to console the whole community and our city and our employees in this loss. We'll end this with our Father.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thy is kingdom, power, and glory, forever and ever. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everyone to the meeting. Air conditioning is catching up, so just bear with us. Have a moment of silence, again, for Miss Tanisha Johnson. She works in the city of Bay St. Louis and unexpectedly passed away. Thank you. Any agenda amendments needed? Added, subtracted?
We don't have anything.
Good? Council?
We're good.
Good? All right, guest, request for CASA for in-kind sponsorship of waiving rental fee for the use of Bay St. Louis Community Hall on Saturday, January 25th, 2025. That's you, Coach.
Good evening, gentlemen. Myron Labatt, 217 3rd Street, Bay St. Louis. I come before you today to request an in-kind donation for CASA of South Mississippi, formerly CASA of Hancock County. We have expanded to 3 southern counties, and we service 141 children. 50 of those children actually that we have serviced have resided in Bay St. Louis. Most of our advocates who are volunteers to the organization also reside in Bay St. Louis. Just in case some of you do not know what we do, CASA trains, the staff trains volunteers to go into the homes of these children who are abused and neglected, and they gather information for the youth court judge, who then, of course, makes a determination as to what happens next with that child. Without CASA, many of these kids would be in either foster homes or left in the homes where they're being abused or neglected. We're asking for an in-kind donation for the use of the community center to hold one of our major fundraisers of the year. It takes lots of money to train volunteers throughout the year, and we do get donations from other entities, including other local governments, but we are not legislatively funded. So we ask for the use of the community center to hold our major
questions?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment, Mr. Labat. Thank you for coming. There's no doubt the many great things that CASA does for our community. I know the council, on behalf of the administration, also developed a fee structure that would recognize the fact that we do know there's the importance of a lot of nonprofits and the many great works they do, because we do get many requests for a decrease or a waive of fees. But to be consistent, we did create a fee schedule that does have a decreased rate for nonprofits. As I mentioned, we get many nonprofits that it's really hard to delineate one from the other. I mean, many nonprofits that do great works in this city that we're very thankful for, but it's one of those that's a matter of consistency. That if we give one a decreased or waive the fee, how do we delineate how to waive the fee for the next one that comes? So I would like some discussion amongst the council, but I think we stick to the fee schedule and that there is a decreased nonprofit rate for that community hall, and really stick to that, again, for consistency's sake, not to denigrate the many great works that these nonprofits do, but I want to ensure that we don't have one above the other. So, up for discussion.
I think the rate now is the same on the weekend for the nonprofits as anyone else, so there's no real discount on the Friday, Saturday, or Sunday.
I think we did that because that's the heavy time.
Yeah.
That's the most,
Opportunity.
yeah.
What's the fee for if it wasn't on the weekend?
It would be $8.80 if it wasn't on the, well, that was the old rate.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to pull up too.
Gentlemen, can
Used to be half
I
price, I think.
offer just a comment? My name is Samantha Johnson. I live in the Kill now, but I used to be in Bay St. Louis. I used to be an advocate for CASA. This is a different nonprofit. This isn't CCA, and not that the environment isn't important. These are people that are gathering. Unless you've been a CASA advocate, you don't know what these people go into when they go into the homes of these kids. And this is a big, what they put into, and it's printing of the paperwork that trains the volunteers. It's the usage of facilities that trains volunteers. It's not just a request to have a party. This is a major fundraising event. Actually, probably the biggest one
It's the biggest
that
fundraiser.
they have. And I'm only speaking because I was an advocate for 5 years, and I had some kids that you couldn't imagine what those children had been through. One father that fathered 7 different kids, so the organization and what they do, and it's not taken away from any other nonprofit, because I'm sure other religious organizations and stuff.
There's
come in
many of
here.
them out there that does.
But
yeah.
but this is different. I mean, this hits, and I don't know that you would find many residents here. You might that would argue that this one's different, but this one's different. Again, I had to come.
Actually,
say something.
we actually came up with this fee structure, I think within the last year or so, at the behest of the administration, everything, to get something that was consistent.
Right.
Because everybody's asking, and so we did this for this reason. And
Oh, I understand. from
like I
business
said, what
perspective.
Councilman Lewis was saying is that, yes, every organization is good out there, and they have many good things, but it's expensive for us to clean it and to maintain this facility. So and I think probably many of us on this board give the CASA in other ways. I know
Right.
I do.
Right.
So
And the volunteers work, so to do something during the week when they've got kids in school.
Right.
So the weekend is not for convenience of the organization, it's just because that's when people aren't working, they can go to the setup and all the other stuff to host it. So, this wasn't planned, I'm sorry, I was just sitting there and I grabbed my own shoulder and
I
said I had to come
appreciate
say
that.
something.
Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Assistance.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, I had a long discussion with Ms. Chauvin about this situation probably a month ago. She called me. And again, right, for consistency's sake, we try to be, we will be consistent. A couple of weeks ago, Historical Society came in. They're putting on the Historical Battle of the Bay. They're doing a play, doing some reenactments. What they're doing is 100% for the citizens of Bay St. Louis. They asked us to be a sponsor, and 50% sponsors for the use of the building, right? So, you know, I explained to Ms. Chauvin that maybe if this council would like to do a 50% sponsorship, as we did with Historical Society, I would be okay with that. But again, you know, I told somebody, right, every time you go to the event, to the community hall, who do you see there? The same us. I mean, the same people. It's the same less than 1% of the population of Bay St. Louis, right? But the population of Bay St. Louis pays the bills for that whole community center, right? Last year, I calculate we lose over $37,000 a year just on rental, on the money we take in from rental. And because we pay insurance on the bill is like $85,000 a year. Electricity's $2,200 a month. So just for the rental fees, just on insurance and electricity, we lose over $37,000 a year on that building. Just not even maintenance, not nothing. Somebody said, oh, it's a cash cow. I said, well, let me explain what we don't make on that building, right?
Yeah.
And I'm here, you know, to help. And if the rest of the council would like this city do a sponsorship like we did at the Historical Society, I would go along with that. But we're a business. City's a business like everybody else, right? We got to pay our bills. And again, I don't mind helping, but every organization's a great organization. And I agree. Abused children, or we've been there. People have been there, right? But again, we have to have rules and regulations. We have to have fee schedules to make sure we're consistent and fair. And you know, I propose that we do a 50% sponsorship. If the council would like to do that, administration would think that we could do that.
Well, I would like to see that. I mean, I work with CASA and the youth court all the time, and they do a great job. I do think they deserve our support, but I think a 50% would be fair to everybody. I know that's what we've done in the past recently, so.
I'm not familiar with the fees, so 50% would be what?
You're asking, well, the nonprofit rate's $1,800. So I'm sure, I guess they rent the whole building, the whole building's $1,800. So, you know, $900 sponsorship from the City of Bay St. Louis, and CASA would pay the other $900. Okay, anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion, Mr. Hoffman.
Second.
Second, Mr. DeSalvo. Any discussion?
And I'll pay 500 of the 900 for them. I'll bring a check to the city hall.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Any more discussions? Vote to motion.
Aye.
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 Aye. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, sir, thank you. Minutes approval, minutes July 11th, budget workshop, minutes July 16th, regular meeting, minutes July 25th, special meeting, minutes July 25th, budget workshop. Make a motion to approve these as amended.
Motion to approve.
Motion, Mr. Noblock.
Second.
Second, Mr. Salvo. Any discussion? Vote to motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 5-0. All right, Mr. Mayor, you up.
First thing we got, looking for motion to adopt the ordinance for a golf cart, low speed vehicle permitted by the city of Waveland to entertain public roads and streets within the city of Bay St. Louis. Just reciprocating to their stickers as well.
Yep.
Make a motion.
Motion, Mr. Salvo, to approve the ordinance 668-08-2024.
Second.
Well, yeah, and that is amending ordinance 631-07-2018.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Salvo, second by Mr. Hoffman. Ms. Smith, thank you for doing this, finding the better way to do that instead of having to redo it every year. So I'm assuming Waveland is doing the same type of
It is supposed to be on their agenda.
adoption, so we don't have to redo it.
I shared this with
Every-
the city of Waveland, and they said that they would put it on their agenda, but this
Okay.
will cover Bay St. Louis,
At least,
no
okay.
matter what what Waveland does.
Yep, good. All right, thank you. Let's vote to motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 5-0.
Next, short-term rental discussion. Send the ordinance out. I think everybody's had an opportunity to look at it. I'm not sure if questions been asked, anything along the way, but I think it's something that is needed to help
think.
not limit, but to help find these and be able to make sure everything is in place for short-term rentals.
I think we needed, the only question I had was the 30-minute response time. Wasn't we at an hour at one time, or we decided to shorten it?
We might,
I think you've gone to 30, you've gone to an hour, you've gone to 2 hours, you've gone back to 30. So that's one of those where it's just, that was what was in the last draft. So I left that language because that's where I left, I figured that's where we left off at.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's discussion on it. I mean, I was a couple years ago the first to try to get some kind of mechanism in place, you know, to look at how we can ensure that we have an idea on what we're dealing with the short-term rentals. You know, looking at this, and I know we discussed the comprehensive plan, you know, that you don't have more than 10% of what your population is that's dedicated to short-term rentals. You know, and Mayor, as you just mentioned, there's really no attempt to curb, correct? I mean, there's other cities that have done that. There's other cities that have basically said, all right, we've got a certain number, grandfathered in, we don't have any new ones. So you mentioned, you know, trying to address some issues, concerns, you know, outside of, we witnessed it the last meeting. We did have a resident that complained about some issues next door that was a short-term rental, and we did discuss that there's really no mechanism in place for the police to know what a short-term rental is or not. You know, and so I did see that there is, I think, a provision in here that if you have, you know, 3 code enforcement violations, that we can suspend the permit. But I just kind of wonder, I would like to hear kind of what that plan is to ensure that there is that ability to monitor and know what those are. But I don't, you know, outside of what our ordinance already state in terms of on-street parking, that pertains to everything. That pertains to long-term rentals, that pertains to residencies. So that's not much different than what we already should be enforcing on the books now. You know, disturbance of the peace. So I just don't see that how this, I'd like to hear the plan and how this will curb any concerns. If there are concerns, we know anecdotally every now and then we get one, but we don't have any record of these. I mean, you know, Doug, we a few months ago discussed about, you know, the whole, you know, curfew for alcohol. Well, there's data-driven information that we could point to that you reference that's not an issue. We don't have that data-driven information at this point because there's no way to gain that knowledge or to understand that. So, I mean, I just look at it as what data do we have that this is going to work? What data do we have that this is going to be a deterrent for any issues that we're seeing?
well, I think what it's gonna do is gonna allow one person to take care of this. Whether, you know, we've talked about whether it's in the fire department to go along with all the inspections that they do on commercial businesses, and then that would be part of this as well. But it's gonna help get a handle on what actually is in Bay St. Louis. You have to do research and everything. Not everybody's gonna come in and apply for it. But then when it's out there, you're gonna be able to hopefully find some of them. The parking, you know, we allow parking on the streets by Mississippi law and everything. If we wanna pass an ordinance today, no parking on the streets outside of parking spots, I welcome that, you know.
An ordinance outside of this?
You know, but, well, yeah, this doesn't address this. It's just like you said, we already have ordinances in place for that, and it allows street parking. But it also tells you, like some of the complaints we've had, where, you know, they sleeping in sheds, they piling them in, they got 8 vehicles there, they parking all over the place,
So
advertising for 20.
what this
restrictions
does is
to
it starts to
Got
use
some
your,
occupancy restrictions to it that'll help
it does.
Yeah.
And so,
curtail that.
yes, and to use your term database, Kyle, what this does is allows the city to be able to start a database, because this will have a registration process that these people are coming in and they're having to register their locations with the city. So then if we get a ping or an address from, whether it be a dispatch report or a police report, you would then be able to look in the city database to know if that home is registered as a VRBO. Then you also have your contact information, your phone numbers. Right now, all you would have is whatever records are in the tax office, you know, maybe something on a utility bill if we have that, depending on the situation. But it gives you easy access to know exactly what is out there. And it's one step to moving in the right direction, and especially with the occupancy requirements.
And I think part of the problem in the past, Kyle, has been that basically exactly what you're saying is, you know, a lot of this stuff is things that should be enforced currently under our current ordinances and laws and rules of the state of Mississippi, so we're not really reinventing the wheel other than
But then I
trying
beg,
to enforce some occupancy and more than anything, I guess, just gain a handle on it through the registration of them as a, you know, a
You know,
licensure.
but why is it
in the
not
state.
being addressed?
What?
If as just discussed, if there's items that should be addressed that are not, that
Well, I
are
think
against
they
the
do
I mean, I
address
think
some
they-
items
they
when
do
it's
on a
from time to
per-case
time
basis,
through
but-
911 calls,
Right.
you know, and police go out. But this would start, you know,
The police have no way of knowing when they go out. I mean, they just go to a house. They have no way of knowing if it's a short-term rental, if it's a long-term rental, if it's an owner. The police has no way of knowing that. This would create a database that
So
could.
from a workflow standpoint, take me through, if you get a call of disturbance of peace, the police are gonna have knowledge that they're gonna have knowledge that this is a short-term rental, and then they're gonna notify the code
well, they
enforcement.
should have something posted, yes, that it is a short-term rental. I
Well,
think
there'd be
it's in here.
there'd be something inside. But, I mean, to answer your question, Kyle, disturbance of the peace is disturbance of the peace.
No matter what.
And I don't, I don't know of any complaints that is not being addressed
I'm not
currently now
specifically
with our
stating that one, it was
police.
just a
But
comment
but
that was-
anything, it doesn't matter if it's disturbing of the peace, if they're parked in a ditch, if they're, not bringing their trash out, it's,
Well,
you
and
know,
I'm
whatever
not-
the issue.
And
So,
I'm not disputing, again, I get the comprehensive plan. I know it was identified that there is, in excess of what you typically want to have of short-term rentals versus residentials. But I always like to look at what the data suggests of what our issues are. I'm a firm believer that capitalism will work in the fact that if you have an establishment that is continuously having a raucous crowd or issues, that they're going to get the review. We've discussed this. They're going to get the bad reviews on these websites and these forums. So, I mean, they'll see their way out of business. So I mean, again, I think it is something that needs to, you know, I do think, I mean, I know we've kicked this can down the road for a while. I don't see much that's not being addressed that's on our books already.
so I've said exactly what you have said multiple times before. But what we were asked by the council was to bring something to get us started with a VRBO ordinance, something that was legally, something that is legal, something that does not go against your current zoning codes. So what this will do, if the council is looking to start a regulation process or to know where these VRBOs, this is your mechanism of doing that.
So there's plans to update this?
That,
I would say so.
you were the legislative body, so.
I'm asking the council. There's
Yeah, I
plans to
would
update
say
this?
so. Back in a long time ago, 2014, I started this conversation, and we're here now. First step is registration, right? Yeah, as parking, you know. So, and my question, yes, I want to adopt this so we can have registration. Step one, right? What's working, what's not working? The legality of, okay, I register my VRBO, I have 3 violations, the city pulls my permit. What does that do? What can we legally keep them from renting their house as a VRBO if we pull their permit somehow, or how does that work, Ms. Smith?
Well, yes, I mean, are you meaning if they keep violating it and then the
Right.
decision is made not to issue them a permit? Yes, because then they would not be in compliance with your VRBO ordinance.
Okay, so then we can fine them at $500 a day per offense, or per
Correct.
offense. If they rented it out without a permit, then
Mm-hmm.
they could, and we found out, then we could fine them $500 a day per offense.
Yeah, so what this really is, if you look at this is more aimed at the safety. It's to do 2 things. It's to allow the city of Bay St. Louis to know and identify which houses are being utilized as short-term rentals and to allow us to establish a database. But then it also does put in restrictions and safety requirements for the people that are coming into these homes.
And that's my
So-
Right.
biggest point is we're not inspecting anything. We don't know if they got smoke detectors in bedrooms. We don't know what these people are going to stay in. That could be a life safety issue within our city. And that's my biggest thing, is not just for the complaints. The complaints, if they're driven, then we have a mechanism to enforce it, because it's pretty much like taking a privilege license from a business, you know, once you,
Yeah, right now,
Don't
we have
issue
no
a permit.
mechanism, so
Right.
even if we got complaints and we didn't, we have no mechanism as a city to go into these houses and look at anything or,
Right.
You know, this is all this is trying to do is establish
Okay.
that process. And
Right.
to know, I mean, sometimes these people long-term rent these things and then rent them out as VRBOs, so you might not even know, you know, by the time you go through management agencies or whatever, who the actual contact person is, so it'll give you a contact person.
Yeah, I'm all for moving forward to get it started. We need to start a database. We need to, start working on it, see how it's working. Supposed to have a parking plan, like me and Mr. Riso was discussing. You know, if you have a R1 residential, you're allowed to have 2 vehicles.
Well, I think
What's a-
that's ridiculous.
What's our
Well, I
parking
know.
plan for
That's ridiculous.
residential and
But the
for
parking
Because
long-term?
if you,
is
if
how
you go
it's-
downtown
Oh, yeah.
and nobody's got parking plans out there for their VRBO.
Well, and that's
Not
part
just
of the
VRBOs,
ordinance
though.
is
It's not
Huh?
just VRBOs.
the plan, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, the parking plan is, because it's parking 53-255. In no event shall on-street parking be allowed in any zoning classification or district. This is to include any types of vehicles or trailers. Proposed parking plan shall be submitted with the application, right? That's part of the process, right? I'll give an example. I got a complaint on Felicity's house, Paul, what's his name's house. It's a 5-bedroom house. They can literally park 10 cars in that parking lot, in that driveway. They're not on the grass. It's a huge driveway. But then you got another place that's got 3 bedrooms and 20 cars outside that they're on the street, they're in the grass. So I guess the parking plan is, to me, part of the problem. A lot of our calls are parking, right? So if they have a parking plan, I can park 4 cars.
So how is this gonna fix when on Friday night and the police department gets called, they can enforce existing law then? But is that happening now? I mean, what I'm seeing is that, people who own VRBOs, own these properties, they pay the full amount of the property taxes on top of that. They don't get any homestead exemptions.
Right.
Now we're gonna tax them again, an additional $300 plus fines if they are found in violation of these things, of parts of these ordinances, of this ordinance in here. I just find it restrictive, and,
But when you rent something like this, there's different codes and all that need to be met with your fire and safety issues mainly.
well, you got a hotel.
So you can go,
that doesn't-
we
you
have
got
people
hotels out
turning
here that don't
sheds
meet
into
these.
VRBOs to sleep extra people. You know, we have people
Well, we
that's
got,
piling them in, you know, and sleeping, you know, advertising 8, 10, 12, 15 people in a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom house, you know, and that's where a lot of this comes in from and all. But again, this is, you know,
We gotta start somewhere.
yeah, but if you got people sleeping in sheds, that's not a VRBO issue. You got, if you
when they
got,
rent them out, it is.
but if you, I'm sure you
Yeah,
got some
certain
people, that's a
person's
code
gonna come up here a
enforcement, and
couple
that's a
times.
building that we can't allow accessory structures that are being rented out or even inhabited as a structure that shouldn't be. So I mean, it's just, again, I'm not opposed to regulating. It's just,
Well, what would you like to see then?
well,
'Cause
you know,
everything right now, you oppose to everything.
opposed in this or
Yeah.
opposed to everything in
I mean,
general.
no, tell me what you don't like in here that
What-
you oppose.
So a
And
couple
what
things.
would you like seen in this?
So if we're going to go, you know, again, there's many municipalities that at what point in the comprehensive plan that was identified there's too many? Is this going to curb it? It's not. How is this going to curb that there's too many VRBOs? It's not, right?
I don't think it'll curve it, but I think if we start getting complaints in a lot of the areas, we can go back to the zoning laws and say R1 might be allowed 3 a street or 2 a street. Eventually, it might come to that one day. If it just gets overpopulated, eventually we might have to control it that
Well,
way.
But I also want a mechanism
all
to
those
control a
that-
weekend
But
home
Josh,
that
it
has
wouldn't even
issues.
it wouldn't even solve that, because you'd have to grandfather the old ones in. You know, so, I just
So y'all
don't
don't
think,
want an ordinance?
I do.
I don't.
I mean,
Well, it's up
the
for the
ordinance
council
was
to
brought
vote on.
because it had
That's
been
what I'm
asked,
asking.
so it's been
And-
asked.
and
well,
And if you give an overarching theme that I'm against everything, that's
You
out of
said
line.
you
completely.
looked at this years ago
Yeah.
and all, but here it is, we bring something back that was asked, but not one thing came out of you supporting anything. in
We
it.
also discussed a few years ago
Yeah.
about the ability, because the city gave away that only, there's a 2% accommodation fee that was given to, I guess, the coach development. And so we had discussed, well, there's an opportunity, every other city you go to, there's accommodation fee that goes to Parks and Rec and beautification.
Correct.
And 3 years ago, we discussed that, and that completely fell off. you know, at the time, Senator Moran got it through at the Senate, but then for some reason it fell off at the House floor. So that was the main reason that, hey, we have to know what we're dealing with, but apparently that's just completely, gone now. So again,
You have an opportunity to do that, Kyle, every legislative session.
we do, and we've discussed it with some of the legislators, but for some reason or the other, and we've had one of the representatives, Anderson, come and speak to it, and for some reason or the other, it just fell off.
Well, you have to bring
forgot
it
about it.
back. So if you want to do that, I mean, we are in August already. So if you're looking to do that for the next legislative session,
Yeah,
I would,
it's been brought up,
I would-
I think, year to
well,
year.
if you'd let me finish, I would encourage all of you, if that's something that's on your plate that you want to see done, you need to have that finished and ready to go by, I would say, November, first week of December. Go ahead and get your legislation, get the language that you want, get it drafted so they can have it in their hands when they hit the ground running in January.
Yeah, we've been through that.
Doug,
Sir?
I'd like more time to look at this and study it a little further and vote on it tonight. I mean, if we could just
Yeah,
postpone it.
we'll bring it back next week to,
Yeah, we're not
next
asking
meeting,
to vote on this tonight.
next meeting. I'm gonna vote on it to move forward.
Okay.
So we can discuss it next week, next agenda. This will be on the agenda. Yeah, have an ordinance number, please. We will vote it up or down. It will be voted on next meeting. I will be voting for it. We need something in place. We need a mechanism. Right? I'm not for government overreaching. We've been kicking this can for a long time, and we're not all gonna get what we want, me, including me. I mean, things that I would like.
My biggest
got-
thing, Doug.
We have to start somewhere, and this is a
I get
start.
it.
and
My
that's
biggest thing is you're singling out a specific business and you're charging them, in my opinion, a high rate
We
just
tr-
because they own a house that they rent out.
Yeah, it's comparable across the coast. I can show you the data.
Well, there's
right,
other
it's-
mechanisms
it's
across
not-
the coast, though.
The
If
mechanism across
if
the
we truly
coast.
want to curb it, then there's other ways to do it.
Yeah, and so New Orleans actually says you can't have them nowhere, and they legally doing it, right?
Well, and
To
I
me-
guess I will tell you, I'm the one who drafted this ordinance, and I did not draft it in a mechanism to curb VRBOs.
yeah.
I drafted it as a way to make sure that we knew where they were and we had information and per the, so if that was if that's what you guys wanted, then I apologize, because that is not
No.
the ordinance that was before you
Right.
several months ago, and that is not what is before you today, which is why we sent this out 2 weeks ago, asking for comments. And I will go ahead and go on the record to say, I have not received one phone call or one comment on this ordinance. So I would ask, if you want to put it back here again in 2 weeks, if you want to be productive, I would ask for each of you to reach out to me via phone, text, email, however you choose to do so, and share your concerns so I can try to
Well, I do think it's
Discuss
relevant to discuss amongst the other council as well,
Oh, yeah.
to get input.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
don't, I
no.
don't disagree with that at all,
Yep.
but again, I can't dress and I can't change and I can't answer questions or try to, work on an ordinance if we can only talk about it. If y'all can't talk to me about it, we're only gonna talk about it in this room. It's gonna take us a very long time to get anything done.
And I would just add to that, I did get a question from Doug on parking, specifically about the parking plan. And the idea was, when they submit a permit, that they would have to submit a plan, ideally, said all parking should be on private property. So that when that application came in and it said you have 3 bedrooms and you could put 6 people, then there ought to be a mechanism to be able to park those cars on that property, ideally,
So are you talking about this would apply to all new VRBOs?
to all VRBOs.
All VRBOs now? Well, that's just
Who would
not
get a permit?
feasible. That's just
Well,
not gonna happen.
Well, again, that's why I said, give us a plan. And again, if you
No,
want to scratch
there is
that,
no
scratch
plan
it.
for that, Mike,
No
because
plan for what?
there's so many VRBOs out there now on small streets, on small lots, that this is destined to cause more chaos than it is to ease anything. Because if you go like in some place in Ward 6, where people have, like I said, 50-foot lots, and they have a high house that might have 4 bedrooms, they're not gonna control their parking.
Well, they can
It's
park all
never
underneath the
controlled
house.
out there.
They got a whole yard to park in, 50-foot wide and 100-foot deep.
The house is on that, Mike.
The house is up there. You park under it.
Well, I'm just saying that.
But again,
They're not-
they
you
supposed to
don't-
have parking to start with their residents.
Right.
So in downtown, where we, got smaller lots sometimes and all, they should have parking with that resident, And when we have people that's coming in and building a house and building a mother quarters out, there's no more than a VRBO,
Well,
that
y'all
backyard,
don't ask businesses downtown to submit parking plans.
Because it's not required.
it's not required.
Downtown business.
So why are you
R1
gonna single this
because R-
business out?
Because
Because
R1
it's-
single family has parking
R1
requirements.
residents
I'm
has to
gonna
have
tell 'em to
parking.
you.
So how do we enforce the weekend homes that are the same, it's the same thing as the VRBOs? I've got one on my street every weekend,
A
every
what?
holiday.
A VRBO?
No, it's not VRBO. It's a residency, but we got the same issues as VRBO, but they're not gonna be held at the same standards.
They should be parking. They should have adequate parking for
And
that.
that's why it comes down to enforcement. We have to enforce across the board.
And that's what I'm getting at. You're not gonna be able to enforce all this.
By law, you're allowed to park in the streets.
You're not
Yeah.
supposed to block the street.
No, that's true.
So, and-
Yeah, we've been on this issue on Carroll Avenue. They park on both sides of the street. It's been measured numerous times. By state law, it's allowed to be done. Me, you wanna make it simple? Pass an ordinance that's no parking on streets unless we're allowed. That's real simple that way.
well,
No
I mean,
parking on the street. Park in your drive. And like that area there, they don't park in that drive. Drive's wide open, but they'll go park in in the street. You know, so pass an ordinance, says no parking in the street unless it's a permitted, parking spot.
The other thing I would just comment, again, it was meant for discussion, so if there's an objection to having, requiring a plan, recommend scratching that line. I mean, again, it's a draft. The other piece on the comprehensive plan, it did say, and it recognized we had 14% of the population as VRBOs. It didn't say that we had too many, it said, you've got a tourist destination that's growing, and also the comments that came from the public were I guess, they were vocalized basically around this issue. So things like, parking was one, noise, and other issues that residents kind of said. So that's when we drafted it. We're trying to find, all right, parking was a complaint, noise. So let's find out what are things that we can try to have, especially is there a phone number where we can get in touch with somebody. So give us some feedback. Again, Doug gave me some on the parking. We went back and forth a little bit.
And
At
some
the
of
end of the
it,
day,
quite
y'all vote, we don't.
Yeah, and some of it is also for the protection of our owners, because unless you go into a house and it's been completely demolished, there's no way of knowing. So if you have allowed guests at your house, unless the neighbors tell you or the neighbors complain, you don't know. There's no way for the owners to know if the police were called to their house at any given moment in time.
I'm good with it. And that's what I said last time. Tonight it's just discussion. I asked for it to be for a vote next time. We'll vote it up or down, I mean, because if not, we'll be here in 3 years to talk about the same
Same
stuff
thing.
and still not doing nothing about it,
Yeah.
so.
Citizens
we-
want it,
all we did is talk
want us
about
to
it
have a
7 years.
mechanism in place. This is the first step, putting that mechanism in place.
I'm not disagreeing about the mechanism.
Right.
I will look at this. I think the fee's too high.
Well, look across the coast, look across the coast, how everybody's doing their fee schedule. Let's be consistent.
Pass is 500, Ocean
Right.
Springs is 400 or 500.
Yeah, if you look at them, we shouldn't be, like Josh always said, the cheapest ain't always the best,
No.
right?
And that's a situation too.
Yeah,
For
like I
here,
said,
that's
The owners are paying full price on the taxes.
But we own
And
businesses.
then we're gonna stick them another price on this, and then a fee and a fine schedule
What
if
do
they
you
don't
think,
comply.
what do you think the Pearl's paying for personal property tax, the
Who?
Pearl Hotel?
Dude, they got abatements out the wazoo.
it's
What are you talking about?
Well,
It's a
any
tax rate.
hotel, the
Tax
one on
rate.
the highway.
They
have
got
a
sales.
rebate. That is a sales tax. That is a
Sales
sales tax
tax abatement.
rebate.
They pay
That's not
personal
tax
property
abatement.
tax, they pay a
No,
lot
they
of
don't.
things.
They
that
got
was-
a tax
No, they-
rebate.
No, they did.
Sales
They got a
tax
sales
only.
tax.
Sales tax only, and the ad valorem tax more than makes up for the sales tax, I can show
So
you the data.
Yeah.
we keep
I mean-
talking about next steps. So what do you recommend the next step is? This is
So-
the first step.
So this
What
is
would you
what,
say
this
the
is
next
our
step would be?
this is what our zoning ordinance says. Minimum number of parking spaces required. Single family dwelling and two parking spaces per dwelling unit. That's what's required. Bed and breakfast talks about, we don't have VRBO in here, but maybe we add it to the chart of usage for parking. That way you have more definitive, but we call that in our ordinance, zoning ordinance about parking, which you're supposed to have. Put this back on agenda next meeting, please. Have us ordinance number. Like Heather said, any input, me and Mr. Rizzo's been pinging it back and forth. We'll continue to do research and continue to move it forward.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Another thing about the parking permit, it says 3 or more notices of violation issued within a 12-month period for any conduct or condition at the short-term rental that constitute a violation of this article, federal, state, and local law. I just don't want to get into a position, if you have problem areas, you got to deal with it.
Yeah, oh yeah, I agree, yes.
Okay.
I agree. All right, Mr. Mayor, anything else?
No, thanks.
All right, council business. I'd order this, right? Motion to approve resolution accepting the resignation of William Buddy Zimmerman, council member Ward 5, effective into business day of August 6, 2024.
Motion to
Motion
accept.
by Mr.
Second.
Noblock, second, Mr. Hoffman. Any discussion?
Hate
Vote the
to see
motion.
him go, but
Yep,
I know it's what he wants to do.
All right.
yeah, it's unfortunate.
Decision he's been
His decision.
dealing with for a while and, just,
It's tough,
yeah.
tough. Any discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Motion to adopt resolution ordering special election be held for the office of Ward 5 council member on September 17th, 2024. We have a resolution that was handed to us. Need to make a motion to approve that.
Motion to approve
Motion, Mr.
resolution
Noblock.
ordering special election be held in the office of Ward 5 council member on September 17th, 2024. Now, this is going to be going under the new district lines, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's already been adopted.
All right, motion from Mr. Noblock,
Second.
second Mr.
Discussion.
Salvo.
The,
Discussion?
what was that date?
September 17th.
It said, they had on here September 17th,
17.
2024.
Why do we have on here October 8th?
That is if there's a runoff.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
All right, any more discussion? Vote the motion.
Aye.
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 Aye. Passes 5-0. Thank you.
So it's going to be in the paper?
Yes. they
We're gonna
got
run it every
advertised.
week in the paper. So that was one reason we couldn't get it in this week's paper, because the deadline's yesterday.
Going to put it on the Facebook?
Put it everywhere.
Yeah,
we
we'll
go.
Website.
put it
We
everywhere
gotta
that
post it
we.
in multiple
Probably
locations.
already on that.
Yeah. Right. All right, next thing, put on the agenda is the Swift Grant Administrator update. A lot of work, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of research, a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort has been into this. On July 17th or somewhere around there, we received RFPs from 6 companies. The administration had a phone call, conference call with 3 of those.
All six.
Or all 6.
We spent an entire day.
Okay.
1 hour, at least 1 hour with each company.
Yep. So, very good effort on that. And so we are, we've sent out a notice to Mr. Clayton on July 25th asking some clarifying questions. We are ready to move forward with, proposed to hire a grant administrator for City of Bay St. Louis for Swift grants. I passed along the scoring sheet that was completed. I completed this scoring sheet, reviewed all the resumes, all the proposals from each candidate. I ranked them, as you see, just from reading their resumes, looking on the websites, what have you, to try to figure out what's the best candidate to move forward. Been in contact with Mr. Riso back and forth a few times on, different things, about their preference or things they're dealing with and talking to. I think it's time to move forward to get a grant administrator on board, on ground, so we can get these grants administered.
If you will, I can give a quick update on some of those.
Okay.
So yes, we received the 6 firms, 5 of which were extremely highly qualified. One from North Mississippi, Jackson area, in our opinion, did not do this type of work. And 4 came out of Louisiana area, 1 was out of Pennsylvania area. Again, those other 5 had processed hundreds, if not thousands of these. So all of them have very good qualifications. Couple of points to note on that. Louisiana number one, in a different FEMA district, follows different rules than our grant agreement and what Mississippi FEMA district is requiring. And if I say something wrong, please correct me. I'm gonna lean to my side.
I don't think it's thousands, I
so-
would say hundreds of
Yes.
grants.
Hundreds.
A few.
It was a long day.
Yes.
Louisiana, the contract is between the homeowner and the contractor. The city parish is not party to the contract. The homeowner goes out and gets 3 quotes, and then they basically get to follow the best and best pricing and best service to do that. That's kind of their purchasing guidelines. Mississippi follows our restrictions, say we need to follow basically federal guidelines, which means bid it, open sealed bids, et cetera, et cetera. That contract is between the city and the contractor, and the homeowner is not a party to that contractor and cannot engage that contractor. So that puts some more liability on the city. Pennsylvania area functions more like us, or more like what we're being told to follow. So which, you know, again, depending on how MEMA would allow us to go to process, that Louisiana, which is an hour or 2 away, would be more attractive, especially their process, where the contract is with the homeowner, not the city. Still passing money through. Both states have a mechanism, by the way, for what they call advanced funds, so that the contractor submits an invoice once a month. That invoice is then submitted, but not paid by the city. So they allow it to be sent up and then reimbursed, so it kind of really cuts that cash flow time down. Mississippi at this point does not have that, okay? But there's a way to request it from what we've talked to the different administrators. Again, there was a lot learned on these phone calls. So it was a webinar. When we did the grant administrator, we also had previously submitted a budget amendment for the 2 grants. I'll also just remind y'all, there's only 2 grants in the entire state of Mississippi. So Mississippi, MEMA has never done this, okay? Whereas Louisiana has done a bunch, Florida's done a bunch,
There's 3.
Pennsylvania.
There's
One in Oxford, right?
but is that a purchase?
Right, yeah.
That's a buyout.
But they've changed that to a buyout, so yes, it
It's
is
a
a
buyout.
SIP grant, but last time we talked to them, they were heading in the buyout direction, not in the house raising direction.
So we submitted a budget amendment to MEMA, which would then go to FEMA, saying, hey, because it was 2001 when this was submitted, the actual cost to raise the houses is obviously increased. Would y'all consider raising the amount of money for construction? In addition, would you pay housing relocation costs for when the homeowner needs to relocate for a period of time, provide some money for hotel? Pay for engineering, and also a grant administrator, which is limited to 5%. So that was submitted. They did send a response to us and asked some more questions. We have then forwarded that reply with the original attached. They have acknowledged receipt of that maybe a week or so ago, 2 weeks, something like that, and said they forwarded it to FEMA. So that's where we are with that. But right now, we do not have funding for a grant administrator. So if the
Correct.
council says hire a grant administrator, realize
you're not
that's
on
your
the mic.
general fund dollars at this point.
Mike, you're not on the mic.
Sorry. That would be your general fund dollars, because there is no commitment at this point. We've requested it, but it's not in a grant agreement. It's not part of the budget of the existing documents that we have. So
What do we-
that's, to me,
what do
is
we
a
anticipate that
concern
amount
and
is, Mike?
premature.
What do we anticipate that amount may be?
It's 5%
Yeah.
of the grant
Yeah.
for each
So,
one.
so if, reading the proposals, right, the grant administrators, some of them said that as part of their job to ensure that they get paid. We can approve a grant administrator tonight. And we can say, hey, you have no money, right, today, you have no money to pay your grant. So part of your task is to make sure you get your money, make sure you get the improved cost, approved, construction cost approved.
That's not the, okay.
3 proposals,
So-
hold up, I'm talking. 3 proposals in the state of Mississippi, $5 million is still in a pot, right? So
That's
it's,
not
there's,
correct
it says, and they're reading their proposals, that they'll go out and get their funds, right? And if they don't get their funds, then they can't do the job. right? So the city's not out of money, because we're not paying them. That says their money is paid through the grant, 5% through the grant.
Puts the burden on them.
The burden's on them. The burden is on them. So that is what, that's where I'm at, right? The citizens are not out, we're not paying it. It says the grant will pay 5%.
But it's not
If,
in your
if we
current
get approved,
existing
we
granted.
apply for the 5% from the.
That is the grant administrator's problem to get that approved. Because if they don't get approved, they don't get paid, right? We're not paying it,
Well, they probably ain't gonna work neither if they don't.
What-
So,
okay?
I mean,
Have we asked? No, we haven't. We're kicking the can down the road. A lot of people has worked on this a lot. A lot of people has worked on this a long time. I'm ready to move forward with it.
and I think we almost at the end of it if we wait.
We can ask the grant administrator to come on board, let them go out and get the proposals to increase the grant, 5% grant, for their payment. Let them get the approval for the increased cost, and then move forward.
I don't think it was just the money the administration was waiting on the answer for. It was to better determine who would better suit the
Well-
needs
well-
of doing the grant, depending what MEMA allows us to operate under, Louisiana law or our current law.
To me, they're professionals. The grant administrators are professionals. That's their job to go do that. It's not our job to tell them how to do it. We hire them to go out and do the job.
They don't make the laws though.
They don't go out and do the job. That's their job. That's what they get paid for.
Okay.
We're not making up the rules. We hired a grant administrator, a professional grant administrator, and they've done hundreds in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Alabama, and Florida. The grant administrators are the professionals. We're not.
No, that's
We're
why-
not.
that's
We're
why.
not. That's why we're gonna hire a professional to move forward, let them figure out the rules and regulations, let them figure how to move forward with these two grants. I've read all these proposals. I've scored them. I've asked administration to send me their score sheets. They're still working on them, because they've not decided what method they wanna use.
So
But
this
to
is
me,
yours, this is your
this is
score
mine,
sheet?
100% mine. But the method they use, it does not matter, because the grant administrator is the person that needs to go out there and get the funding and get the approval,
I think
not
the-
City Bay St. Louis.
I think the method used is gonna determine how contractors are selected, how bid laws are followed. There's a lot to the method
But it's,
before that.
but
is,
we're
I
not
think-
approving the method. We're getting a contract administrator. That's their job.
Yes.
The contract administrator, that's their job to get the method. City of Bay St. Louis ain't gonna tell the administrator, this is the method you're gonna use.
I think City of Bay St. Louis is waiting on MEMA and FEMA to give us
Well,
guidance
the
on
MEMA
The only thing I will say is this team sat through almost 6 hours or over 6 hours of interviews, and we spoke with each one of the grant administrators. And it is my legal opinion that we are not ready to make an award of this. So I want that on the record, and anything else y'all can.
Why is it not? Why haven't y'all scored the RFPs individually? And have a score sheet? Every RFP we have individual score sheets for each person.
As Councilman DeSalvo has said, is the person that is best qualified to do this is going to be the person that has experience doing it in the mechanism that Mississippi MEMA requires and that Region 4 requires. And there is a very different mechanism, the way Louisiana has done this and the way other states have done this and the way that the state of Mississippi is saying that it will have to be done. So if we go with one of these firms that are in Louisiana that has done this, they are gonna have to completely recreate a wheel.
Okay.
So if we go with one of those firms and we're required to do what we've been told all along that we are required to do, we are in no better situation than we were 6 months ago.
But we have a grant administrator that's moving through creating that wheel. We shouldn't have to create the wheel.
I disagree with that.
We shouldn't have to create the wheel.
And the grant,
Disagree with that as well.
and the cost of the grant administrator goes to their ability to procure that versus, we continue to pay
I
legal
also
fees.
disagree with that.
We continue to pay legal fees for the continuation of the research on this as well.
Hey, I will be happy to not touch one more thing on this grant.
Yeah.
You will not hurt my feelings at
And
all.
Ms. Smith has done a lot of work, and I know the frustration on everybody's part, because it's, to me, it's government at its best, right? It's just FEMA, MEMA, you can't get a response. To me, reading proposals, a grant administrator will do everything we're doing today. They'll take it and they'll move it forward. Whatever way they have to make it work, that's what they're gonna do. They're hired, trained professionals. And I don't know,
I really wish you would have sat through 6 hours of interview so you could have talked
I
with these
didn't.
people.
I sat through 6 hours of reading every one of these proposals. I read 6 hours of scoring every one of these proposals
I read through them too.
right?
I read
So
through 'em
yes,
too.
I do. I have a job, a regular job. It's y'all's job to sit through those proposals. Your job to give us a score sheet on who you want to have
And we also
as
talked-
a,
But where's
you
the
know,
score
and we
sheet?
got, and we're not
best-
any
the
further
best
ahead.
one for what Mississippi has.
It don't, it
is
does,
out of
I don't
Pennsylvania.
understand the and I understand what your concept is. But my concept is I'm hiring a grant administrator. Their job is to go out and fundamentally figure out how to make the grant work. Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Region 4, Region 6. That's the grant administrator's job. That's what I'm looking at.
And for the record, the reason there is no score sheet is because, based on state purchasing laws and the processes that would be used, that will determine how we score and who should be higher. That Pennsylvania firm is very attractive because they're run just similar to the Mississippi requirements. But ideally, that would not be, we'd rather have somebody an hour or two away that can
Local.
drive themselves over here once a week if needed to meet with the homeowners. So, again, you can look at all the pamphlets and
Oh, I
all
know.
these different
It's
things
still-
we do RFPs, they all look the same. Here's the pretty pictures
Yep.
and all the facts and the experience. Then you have the phone call conversations and you get some personality.
Mhm.
And one of them, we said, hey, you know,
I know,
he's
we-
gonna come in and it's gonna be like this with MEMA. That's not what we want. We're
Right.
looking to, we gotta go and partner with MEMA.
Yes.
And all this, we kinda like, you know, but that was, again, came through a personal interview and a personal discussion.
And I've had
Every
these
one of
discussions
these, if
with
you looked at them,
Right.
again, you know, the
Yep.
qualifications are there. They've all processed these things.
Is there, we keep
You know.
referencing 6, but there's one on this score sheet that's not applicable, there's 0, so.
Well,
That was,
yeah.
Is
they
that, is that
basically
the
have-
same
yes.
as your,
There was one in Mississippi that pretty much only, his only experience was dealing with like some COVID
there was-
income reimbursement, never touched.
so we're
the
really
stuff
dealing
we
with
had.
5?
Yeah. That was,
Which one's the one from Pennsylvania?
The last one.
SMM?
Yes.
but again, I'd go back and look at the score sheet and we probably, if we're picking Louisiana, we're probably agreeing with points, your numbers. I mean, I would say those are rising to the top.
Well, and I don't
You know,
understand why, and I guess, I don't know, from a professional standpoint, if I'm a grant administrator, I'm a professional, I can administer a grant in any state. I know it's different. It's different than what I do it at my house. It's different than the way you do it at your house. But I'm a professional grant administrator, and I can read the rules, and I can administer that grant according to the state of Mississippi guidelines. Why can't that happen? I don't understand. Are they not smart enough to administer it? Because that's what we're hiring them for. Not for us to say, okay,
What you're
MEMA
looking
said
at
you're gonna
who
do it
is
like this.
qualifications to administer the grant the way that MEMA and Region 4 is going to require it to be administered. So if you're looking at putting the burden, and the city is going to have to go out and the city is going to have to follow Mississippi procurement, no, those Louisiana companies are not doing any of that. So you were going more than just checking administrative boxes. And to me, and what our group has discussed, is there's really no holdup here. Because until FEMA gets us answers, until FEMA approves a cost estimate, nothing's going out for bid. There's nothing, so all these answers should come at the same time. So going out and getting a grant administrator or just hiring somebody just so we can say that we checked the box and we hired someone, because that's what you're asking to do, does not move us forward. Because until we have the letter back from FEMA giving us cost adjustments, saying if they're going to add money into this grant, until we have all of that, we have nothing. So there's nothing that we can be doing until we get answers to these questions. Therefore, it did not seem like a logical approach to make a recommendation for a firm for you guys to go hire, who may not be the easiest firm to work with, and we have to go start and we have to recreate a wheel, and we have to create liability waivers, and we have to create sub-grants, and we have to create contracts, and we have to create all these documents that they do not have to utilize in Louisiana. It seemed pretty foolish to recommend a company that would have to go reinvent this entire wheel when there's another company sitting out there who has this wheel sitting at her computer and will take about probably 20 minutes to get it all prepared for us. So that was our logical approach, as why are we going to press the button and push forward with something that we're uncertain of when there's nothing we can do about anything until we get a letter back from FEMA?
Well, to me, the contract administrator would receive that letter from FEMA. City of Bay St. Louis is out of it.
Yes, okay.
No,
To me, that's what I would say, because that's their job. They're grant administrator.
Okay, so that's not the way this works, because if the city of Bay St. Louis is the one having to go out for bids and the city of Bay St. Louis is having to procure that, the city of Bay St. Louis is working hand in hand with
Correct.
that administrator.
Right, but the administrator
You're
is-
thinking a best world scenario that we would all love, that's just not reality.
But the grant administrator would be driving this. The city would not be driving this. They'd have timelines, they'd have goals and objectives, timelines. I mean, it's part of their processes. We have goals and objectives.
Yeah, and so right now, their process number one would say, we need to get something back from
And
MEMA.
As soon as
because
they
if
got it
we-
back, they would take that
FEMA.
information and then start moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
They would set up the bids. And if we had to do the bid law like you're saying, which is 100% correct, if we have to do it like that, we would have to receive the bids and open them within the city hall. Right, that's what, but the contract administrator, grant administrator, that would be their job to schedule, to make sure we're there, make sure everything's done correctly, because that's part of what they're getting paid for. That would get,
I guess I don't know, I'm at a loss, this is not a logical approach to me. I've
Yeah, I
explained
know, it's-
everything from a legal standpoint, a
Yeah.
grant standpoint, and from sitting in 6 hours worth of interview and dealing with this for 2 years of my life.
Yep.
So if you think your recommendation is better, by all means.
roll on.
Mike, you mentioned that, I see the letter in the packet that was sent to Mr. Clayton French. But do we have an acknowledgement letter from MEMA that's been received and they've promulgated it up to FEMA? Do we have any,
First one or the second one, because we received acknowledgement on both
Both.
where's the,
via email.
is it in the packet?
I don't know if I included.
I just don't have
acknowledgement
visibility of
with
it.
I
I
could
just
send it to you.
like to put eyes.
and forward it,
I think
attach
you
it.
just said when it was acknowledged. I think the acknowledgement said
Accepted.
acknowledged and
It said
received.
we've acknowledged it and forwarded on to FEMA. And I will tell you, it also said FEMA has 90 days to respond.
That's what I was
However, in
looking
our
for, is what is the
experience-
response time?
However, in our experience, it's less than that. I mean, again, we've been dealing with FEMA on Ida and Zeta and we're pushing.
Pushing the ropes, what I'm doing.
Yeah. But
People
kinda like
speed
Heather was
bumps.
saying is, we can't do any steps until we get a response back from FEMA and MEMA. At that point, and then especially once we know what is the process they want us to use, will they let us use the 3 quotes like Louisiana? That would be a blessing.
Right.
Huge blessing for the homeowner as well as us.
So the two Tetra Tech and HGA could not administer the Mississippi grant as
No,
grant
they-
administrators?
I wouldn't say that, not at all. I think all these companies could.
So why
Administer
wouldn't?
it.
Not as
Louisiana.
easily is the
No, but
question.
why
Not
wouldn't we
as,
just move
not as
forward?
easily. They do not have the process ready to go that Mississippi would require. And in fact, they're of the opinion that they're like, well, why do you have to follow this? So in fact, they are headstrong the other way, that this is what our region makes us do.
Right.
So what we're concerned about is there being a hostile approach, which one firm that we interviewed straight up was ready to go take on a fight with MEMA, which would not be in anybody's best interest,
Right.
to, say, hey, MEMA, you're wrong. So if we're going to MEMA and MEMA is going to FEMA and our Region 4 is telling us time and time again, this is what we have to do, this is what we have to do. So isn't it better to just do it the way that they're saying that it needs to be done, rather than engage in another year-long fight of fighting Region 4 as to how we need to do it?
I'm looking through my email, that was the 25th, the letter was dated, and the 31st was the response
First one,
from
Clayton.
Jana, the
Yeah, yeah.
second one.
Things ought not be this hard.
May I speak?
You a real short statement, please.
No, sir, I mean, I've worked my butt off on this, so I've got a statement. Okay, so I understand what Heather's saying. She has done 2 years. When I started this, I was 62 years old, and now I'm 65 years old, okay? So I do know. So I'm gonna say this. And before I start, because what Doug is saying, y'all are saying don't reinvent the wheel. These people, even though they may be in Louisiana and that different area, they're not gonna submit a proposal if they feel ill-equipped to do this. So I wanna start with that. We all know that costs are soaring in every area of our lives, and the estimate for the cost of our house raising is no exception. Every time we have to resubmit an increased estimate cost, that also means our 10% we owe goes up. So I believe at this point, it is fair to say that time is of the essence. Also, until the time we have our house raised, I pray we do not flood again because I'm really not looking forward to scraping out leaches from my house. Over 3 months ago, this council agreed to send out RFPs in search for a grant administrator. That brought several companies to the table, 2 of which seem to have risen to the top above the rest. These companies are trained at what they do to cut through all the minutia and all the red tape. What we are doing is trying to go through this with blindfolds on, and somehow, even with blinders on, I was able to secure award letters for our home and for April Bird's property. But now, to go forward, we have to have a grant admin, or all the time and effort from everybody that is sitting in this room will be all for naught. So I reached out to the city clerk's office and requested the 6 proposals that were sent in by the 6 admin companies. I reviewed all of those companies and did research on each and every one of them. Also, as a private citizen, I simply reached out to get information on their fee structures, because I know from the last meeting when we discussed this, there seemed to be a bit of confusion as to whether it's just a 5% fee structure or 5% plus potential hourly rates. This is the answer that I received to clarify this issue. Quote, "Hello, Tammy. The RFP only asks for hourly rates, which is what you show below. However, we feel that it is important to add the verbiage below regarding the 5% of the total project cost. A management company cannot hold a time and material contract with a jurisdiction to work on a FEMA-funded project, nor would or should a jurisdiction want them to hold a contract billed on an hourly basis. FEMA sets the 5% cap on management fees, and those fees should be milestone driven to ensure that the management company does not exceed the 5% cap. Otherwise, hourly fees could easily exceed the 5% cap that is eligible for reimbursement, and the city could be responsible for the additional fees. Or you could run the risk of a company overcharging, hitting the 5% cap halfway through and then walking away and not completing their full scope of work. If the work is milestone driven, all tasks will be completed within the 5% through closeout. So yes, those are our rates, but that really doesn't matter to Bay St. Louis. Those rates are internal rates to our company. Bay St. Louis will not receive an invoice for project management from us that exceeds the 5% cap. I hope this helps," end quote. And I would like to add that if there was any fee for simply applying for the grant and securing it, they assured me that that fee would not apply to these 2 award letters because we've already done the work and the fee would simply be the 5%. They also said going forward, if there is an application fee, that they could help to word it where it could possibly be reimbursed. Along with that clarified information I received, I also posed this question. Quote, "Since the award letter in May of 2023, prices have gone up and FEMA asked for a revised estimate. And no surprise, it went up over $30,000. Can a grant admin go to FEMA and ask for an award adjustment because of increased cost of the project?" The answer from the company is this, quote, "Yes, it is possible to ask for additional funding, but there's no guarantee that FEMA will approve it. There is a set pot of money congressionally allocated to each FMA and FMASC cycle," meaning the meaning FMASC FY22 is for fiscal year 2022, representing the application year. If there is money remaining in that specific allocation that has not been used, it is possible, and I'm adding in, and I would like to drop a side note here, because I know that there is probably money left that year because Mississippi didn't use it. We were the only ones. To continue their response, quote, "Personally, I would recommend getting a project management company in place before attempting to make any revisions to the budget. Whichever company is selected, they should look back through the application, the budget, check the proposed cost increase to the BCA, FEMA's benefit cost analysis, and make sure that you have not overlooked anything before revising the budget or ask for overruns. If you have to amend the application or ask for additional funds, you only want to do that one time. Every time you amend the application, it goes back to FEMA and time is delayed," end quote. So here's my concern as of right now. The last meeting, the city attorney asked for us to submit updated estimates for cost of our projects. And it is possible that things may have been missed or overlooked that actually a grant admin company would know to word and step in, because they know exactly what to do and exactly how to word it. This is what they've been doing, and this is how they make their money. While I appreciate all the loops that the city has made, I feel like we are working harder and not smarter. It is obvious to everyone at this point that we need a grant admin. I feel confident that our award letters will be utilized, but every time we spin our wheels and grope around in the dark without the appropriate trained counsel of a grant admin, all of this effort for the last 3 years is threatened. I feel that this project has been stonewalled for different reasons. Most of those have been out of the fear of the unknown, and we will stay groping in that fog until we bring on a grant admin company. While I still have this platform, I want you to hear about what else is possible for families in our area. As I spoke to the representative of this company, they informed me that FEMA had restructured that FMA grants. This person told me there's absolutely no difference in the FMA grants and the Swift Current Initiative grant, except for the FMA is non-disaster identified and the Swift is disaster identified, meaning there is a pot of money every year that people meeting the criteria to apply for these grants to have their homes raised could partake in, whether there's a disaster storm or not. That being said, I asked them to send me the qualifications of what would have to be met for a property to apply for FMA, and this is what they forwarded to me. Quote, requirements for FMA properties include in a project sub-application for FMA must be insured by the National Flood Insurance Program prior to the opening of the application period, and it must be maintained in perpetuity. Severe repetitive loss structure covered under the NFIP policy are eligible for remember this is FMA, not SWIFT, for 100% federal cost share. Bullet point 1, 4 or more separate flood insurance claims with the amount of each claim, including building and content payments, exceeding $5,000 and with the cumulative amount of such payments exceeding $20,000, or bullet point number 2, at least 2 separate flood insurance claim payments, building payments only, have been made where the cumulative amount of the claims exceed the value of the insured structure. For repetitive loss structure covered under NFIP are eligible for a 90% federal cost share. Bullet point 1, 2 flood insurance claims in which the cost of repair on average equaled or exceeded 25% of the value of the structure at the time of the flood's event. And at the time of the second incidence of flood-related damage, the NFIP flood insurance policy contains increased cost of compliance coverage. Under certain circumstances, and this one blew me away, properties that do not meet SRL or RL status may be eligible for a cost share of 75%. The other requirement for the application that it must be cost effective. We have to provide a benefit cost analysis with a minimum of a 1-to-1 ratio encompassing all of the structures in the application using FEMA's BCA 6.0 module, which have to show that the past flood damages and projected future damages exceed the cost to elevate, reconstruct, or acquire the structure. That is the general requirements, end quote. So to sum this up, while this has been trying on so many levels to so many people, especially the homeowners involved here, amazing things have come out of this. If we bring on a grant admin company, let them help us finalize these 2 grants that we've already been awarded, we can also utilize them to help our citizens apply for and receive FMA grants as well. Just imagine the families whose lives would be drastically changed in the positive. We're talking about families, they won't have to worry about health issues when they flood. They won't have to worry about the safety issues when they flood. Their property values go up exponentially, which means a ripple out effect in revenue to the city. Also, I checked with my flood insurance, and once our house is raised, our flood insurance goes from $3,200 a year to $1,400 a year. And for somebody like our household, that's a game changer. And that money can then turn around and be infused into small businesses like we have, or just retail infusion into the community instead of going to an insurance company. That is just one small example of the financial benefit that will come from us working with the grant admin company. Because if they are allowed to work on the front end, they will be successful on the back end. The person I spoke with said their main goal is to protect the city and to protect the homeowner. They also told me that hundreds of FMAs they have done and the additional SWIFT currents, and out of all of those, they have only been declined one time. I think that's a pretty good success rate. And once again, remember, if we allow them to work on the front end, they are experts at knowing how to word this and what to include so that all the funds needed fall into the award letter they received. As of right now, there are 74 identified severe repetitive loss properties in Bay St. Louis, as well as 11 repetitive loss properties. And as you heard in the description, even a property can be projected to flood, they would still be possibly included in a 75% funding of their property through a FMA grant. If we do not move forward with these two SWIFT grants that we've already hammered out with blood, sweat, and tears, we're telling everybody else no that could possibly receive the FMA. This is not just some funds to embellish these properties. These are things that are game changers for a potential 10% of our community. So not moving forward with these two known award letters by bringing in a grant admin company now and letting them do their job, we are telling no to all these other families. How can we, in good conscience or noble character, do that? It is one thing for us to act on ignorance of not having information, but now we do have information and a wealth of it, and it's all been very hard earned. Would we just throw this away, this foundation that we've laid, and ignore all these other families with children and the elderly that can have their homes raised by walking into this new path? I look at each one of these councilmen here tonight sitting in front of me, and if I called you out by name, could you in your mind identify people in your area that you know could possibly qualify for this FMA grant? Well, you know you need to give a vote tonight to bring on a company. And I pray you vote your conscience as well as a vote for the health and benefits of your constituents who in good faith voted you into this leadership role. Thank you.
Thank you.
To address some of that, we never said we're not gonna do it. We said, give us the time to get the answers
I've
back.
given 3 years, Josh.
And I have to.
And no,
You're my
no,
constituent.
actually,
I want you to get it.
Josh,
But I'm gonna follow the
there's been
process.
many a time I had to hunt you down. I appreciate you. I love you to pieces.
All right.
But I've had to hunt you down and pinpoint. Even when we were awarded this letter, I didn't hear from it because you told me you had 2 jobs. I didn't hear from it for almost 9 to 10 days that we even had an award.
That's fine, but I'm still gonna do what's the best interest of the
I
city.
understand
At
that.
the end of the day, no matter how upset you get, no matter how mad you want me to do it right now, I'm gonna protect all the
A
citizens
grant
of our city.
admin will protect us.
And waiting another 2 weeks possibly for an answer might give us a better direction forward. We never said we're not doing it. We said we just want the answer to come in and then we'll move forward.
And the answer
got
could
90
take up
days.
to 90 days. 90 days, Josh. And I think you are my councilman.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm your constituent.
I know. You
So,
are.
And so
a
is April.
question,
I know.
Miss Smith, question. Miss Smith?
I'm just wondering if I should speak to you or Ms. Bird.
Oh, no,
Address
I'm,
the council
hello.
president.
I'm done.
Since
I'm
we
gonna
are,
sit
these
down.
are RFPs, I know in the past we have chosen 2 candidates. And the city have interviewed them and to see which is the best candidate, right? So SMMN and HGA. Could the council propose to recommend those 2? And the city would work with either one as the appropriate information comes available? Is that legal?
There's no reason to do that because whoever you select, you still get a contract with that person. So, I mean,
Like, so
There's just not really-
RFPs, RFQs, we say, okay, let's have 2 and we'll bring them in and talk to them, right?
well, we had
Or
6 and
have
we
6, but
talked to
but
all
we've-
6
we've-
of them, so we've
narrowed them
been
down
there.
to 2 now, right? So I'm just trying to figure out how do we, again, advance the game, right?
I mean, so your next step is to get a contract. So you award, you do a contract, same way as if you're doing construction, whatever the case may be. So the next situation would be to have your contract with them.
Okay.
So,
So once we approve one, then the city will get into a contract with them
mhm.
and for them to administer the grant.
That is correct. typically a contract involves paying them.
So where does, again, the pay-in is where I'm, there,
So we're saying we're going to use, the idea is to use grant money to do this.
but they don't get paid unless they have a project. As they come on board, they know their pay is their 5%. We don't get a contract and say, we're gonna pay you $150
Yeah, but we're
an hour, right?
contracting with somebody knowing we don't have secured funds to pay them.
Yeah, but they gotta sign the contract, put a provision in there.
Yeah.
If they go after the funds, we're not liable for it. They gotta sign it too.
They're the administrator. I mean, we're not expending city money. The grant is.
The money's not the
Well, I know,
problem here.
well-
The problem here to me is there's two very different, distinct ways of going about doing this. So I do not feel comfortable making a recommendation to you as to who I think is the best situation. If the mayor or if Mr. Riso feels differently, then they can speak
they
up
don't.
and share their opinion. But after sitting through 6 hours of interview and talking in depth with these people, I am not comfortable making a recommendation to you until I know what process we have to follow. I don't know how to be any more clear. I mean, if you want to make a selection tonight and you want to go with whatever firm you want to do, that's fine. You can make it and you can figure it out. You might be creating a much more difficult road for yourself. That's the answer that we're waiting on. And I can't give you what that answer is. I mean, I can tell you I ping MEMA once a week, if not more, to ask. I'm not sitting on my behind. I'm not twiddling my thumbs. I'm waiting on a response. So if you guys want to move forward with something, then, I mean, by all means, please do. But I'm telling you, after sitting through multiple, can we not have commentary from the audience? But after that, we are making a recommendation to you guys. That's all we can do is tell you what our recommendation is. And our recommendation is to hold off until my recommendation, I'm not going to say our because maybe you two see differently, but my recommendation is to sit tight until we hear something from MEMA so we know exactly what we have to do.
So to be clear, we're looking at, based on the email that MEMA corresponded back, another 90 days to hear back from FEMA,
Up
correct?
to, but it probably won't take that long. And they've been trying to work on this pretty quick because of, they know it's drug on for years. And my conversations with MEMA and everybody is that they kind of expediting all the answers and replies on this case
I
because
mean, nobody, and
they want to see
that's
this
what I want
grant
to be
work.
clear.
They wanna see it
Nobody
work.
is sitting around. MEMA is trying to figure out from FEMA, well, how can, okay, Region 4, how can Louisiana do this? And you're saying that we can't. Look, I'm not just trying to create roadblocks here. My life would be much easier if we could have administered these things and got them out of the way 2 years ago. Believe me, I would much rather get this out of the way 2 years ago in my life so we still wouldn't have to be dealing with this. But this was a very good idea by the federal government, but not all states were prepared for it. Mississippi probably being one of them. Some of these
Yeah.
states, some of these bigger states have full disaster within their equivalent to MEMA. They may have 20 employees. That's all they do is administer and work on grants like that. The state of Mississippi does not have that. So from the top to the bottom, and we're the bottom, we've all been working together to try to figure this out. And you have the head of MEMA working on this. You don't have somebody sitting in a cubicle at MEMA working on this. You have the head of the agency at MEMA personally working on this project. I don't know what else that I can tell you or what else that we can say can be done.
Who is the head of?
Clayton French.
Clayton French.
Okay, I thought he was a deputy something. Okay, but he is the,
The other comment I would
Yeah, the
say is,
deputy head
What-
of MEMA,
okay.
The other comment-
deputy director of MEMA,
Yeah, it was the deputy. I didn't say
deputy
director.
director of
The
MEMA.
director would be, yeah. That's what I was asking, who the director would be.
So
Okay.
the other comment I would say is, we are fully aware that if we can be successful in these two grants, working partnership with MEMA, that it will open up the entire state. And they know that too.
I
We've
like
had the
that.
conversations of partnering together.
Right.
Not going in, that's why one of the companies, we said, wait, this is not the right company. They want to come in throwing fist.
Right.
We
yeah.
want to partner so that when we are successful with these two houses, it's gonna open up the entire state, cause it's gonna define the process for the entire state.
That's
And there's more
exciting.
money to come. The 5 million or whatever, they did this a few years ago, my understanding, that's closed off, but there's another disaster, there is more money, there's annual money,
It's FMA money.
okay? So once it sets up and we did get that process worked, it's literally, it's gonna open it up for the whole state.
Yep. No, we agree.
Wait, I do want to say, because that's encouraging, because this has been so postponed and so arduous and so emotional and so stressful on so many levels. But I keep saying, okay, God, why is it? And it's because there are so many other families that if this can break open, like Mike just said, we will be a place set apart, because we will have been the ones that ushered this in literally for the rest of Mississippi, as far as I can see. And
Not
all of
just
this,
Hancock
was just like hard, knocked out information, one brick at a time, one brick at a time. But what I do want to say is, yes, it is difficult to work with MEMA. We do have to wait for that letter. But if we bring in a grant admin, they're not going to step in and ruin their reputation because they can't handle this. So let them be the communicator with MEMA, because that is what they do.
Okay.
We're trying to reinvent that wheel.
Yep. All right, thank you.
And some of the things that Ms. Tammy addressed was in the answers we're waiting for was increased money
Right.
for the home raising and plus the administrative fees and everything else and engineering fees. That is all part of the question we're waiting on,
Yeah, I saw
besides
the letter.
which way we can go with it.
Yep. All right, good discussions. Unfortunately, I will not bring it to a vote tonight. We'll move on, and keep pushing forward.
So we're not going to vote tonight?
So someone wants to make a motion.
So what are we going to do?
We're gonna wait till we get that information back.
In 90 days?
Hopefully a lot sooner than
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
No matter what, it's waiting on FEMA's reply, no matter
So why
what.
couldn't we get a grant admin and let grant admin?
Yeah, so we're gonna move forward. Anybody got more discussion on it? All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Curtis. Thank you, Ms. Bird. All right, discussion library funding.
Hey,
Oh, sorry.
I know it's on the agenda, I think Kyle put it on there.
Yeah.
We're setting up another workshop, if we wanna put that off as a workshop to discuss this.
That's fine. Yeah, I mean, it don't matter.
Discuss it now as
Did you
well.
get that today,
or
budget? Caitlin sent out,
I'd have to look.
Emailed it.
this afternoon, I sent Caitlin to send a budget out from the
So,
library.
yeah, so just brief discussion. Let's just briefly discuss this, and then it can be hammered out. Yeah, so my thought, again, we discussed this last budget meeting. Of course, the city is being asked of Bay St. Louis for $25,500 in additional funding to roughly about $160,000 that we support the library system. I just, after recollecting the meeting we had at the last budget hearing, we all know we're in very questionable times. There's also been very questionable times throughout the city when, there's a needed raise and you have to make difficult decisions. Do you not want to fill a position that can fund those raises? Do you cut a position to fund those raises? And I keep going back to the discussions we had about, the lack of consistency with some of the other cities. So, again, I wanted to bring that back up for discussion, that I feel like, if that is something that this is solely relied upon the city to fund increases, let's find it in the budget to either not fill an open or vacant position or make the difficult decision to have to cut a position to give those raises. And I would like to see it to where every municipality would be paying a proportional share, as we discussed in the last budget hearing, dedicated to their respective library. So that's just, I wanted to bring up here. If this is going to be further discussed in the budget hearing, great, but that's certainly something I wanted to bring up.
Yeah,
And
I think that was the concept that, Mr. Radecki, John, was to move forward this, and then in January, go to the Board of Supervisors, go to the cities. Bay St. Louis and Waveland have dedicated millage,
yeah,
right? So they would go to the county and say, okay, Bay St. Louis said they would drop their millage, Waveland would drop their millage, the county would fully fund the library system. And it's not a double tax against the taxpayers again. He said he would bring that proposal forward to
But
try to get that
I'd like to
approved.
see that proposal until we obligate 25,500.
Yeah, well, that's in he said we do in January, start moving that forward in
But
January.
we can look at next budget year if that falls through, or if he gets that,
Right.
great. But that's,
Yeah.
and that's one opinion. I mean, if
Yep.
we want to bring it to a roll, whatever we want to do.
Yeah, yeah. And we
Look,
can,
so this is the thing. I'd rather not increase their spending at this point. I mean, they are funding new positions, after reading their plan. I think what they need to do is go back to their budget and they can find the money that they need. The library does have a, foundation. They are sitting on a very sizable amount of money.
that's where
And
they get
each
that
year, they get about 350 or 350,000 or so.
330 this year.
Yeah, 330 this year.
Yep.
And it cannot be used for personnel, and there's a few other restrictions on it.
Operations,
But
yeah.
they can look at their budget and move monies around. I think they'll find the monies that they need. Or do not open with that new position that they want to fund. I mean, I'm watching on TV today or yesterday, and the stock market's crashing. So, I mean, there's a lot of financial things that are going on and a lot of uncertainty going on. And I just don't want to be in a position where we're raising taxes on our business owners, our citizens, just for the sake of adding a new position. So I think, I'd like to hear from them again. I'm sorry I couldn't be here at the other meeting, but I think they can probably, if they want to fund that position, then take it out of their reserve fund. They've got a well-stacked reserve fund.
Is that about 600,000?
Yeah, and they said they had $1 million, and they've been using reserve funds, as part of operational
You
funds.
said about $6,000.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're looking at
Yeah,
1%
it's not a lot, but,
of 1% of the
But then,
reserve.
this increase is not only for, additional person, it is to increase the pay, right? Because their pay is $11, $12, $13, so they can't hire people, because that's what they're making at McDonald's. So they're trying to get the,
I don't know, they make it pretty good at
the wage, the living wage or the wage up or something, right? So his employees, because they haven't gotten a raise in a handful of years. So this proposal is to bring him up, because Board of Supervisors is ponying up $100,000 or something. So, but he's trying to get his employees a living wage, basically.
But you got to make a difficult decision. That do you want to bring in a new position, or do you want to give
Well, but,
increases?
yeah, but so, again, I don't have
I
the
mean, can they
spreadsheet pulled up, but.
look at the staffing times and maybe close some libraries that aren't,
He talked about doing staggered times.
staggered times,
But
things of that nature?
But I do draw
did
back. I
mention
thought
that.
Councilman DeSalle brought up a good point. Is that yes, the city of Bay St. Louis is paying 160,000, but we also and the county is as well. But the tax base of the county is near 25% of what Bay St. Louis. So again, I just and in light of what some of the other municipalities are or are not paying, I would like to see that come up. And I know I get it that they're going to go to a resolution in January. Great, but until then. Maybe it's time to make a difficult decision. Do you want to bring in a new position right now? Maybe hold off on it, bring raises in. What's most important? And so,
I'd rather wait and see what discussions come out of the county before we start increasing, our tax liability to another entity at this point. That's just my
Yep.
2 cents.
All right, we'll have it back on for discussion when we having a budget meeting?
We were trying
Next
to see,
Thursday?
we were gonna look at next Tuesday, we were
Next
looking at,
Tuesday?
but we hadn't set that out to y'all or anything yet, we're just looking at the calendar right
Yeah,
now.
Temple. Okay,
I
good
wanna check,
discussion.
I'll send y'all a date and just, hey, is this good for y'all, who can't, who
Yep,
can?
okay.
We have to just kinda do
All
a
right,
sample size.
council business, Mr. Hoffman?
Just want to revisit the, speed humps, speed tables by, McDonald Park over there by the, by the splash pad. I saw we got an email on that and some proposals, but I know those are prefab ones. Did we have any pricing on getting the ones done that are just asphalt ones?
The asphalt has, I wouldn't say fell by the wayside, but it's getting somebody to come in and do them. We're having a hard time to get someone in when we need them and all, but, right now, we just don't have anybody that can come in and do the asphalt. We do have a speed bump, one speed bump on each side of the road at that, which, do you put one, I don't know where, closer to the park or the middle of the park and put, a few of them in there? I don't know, Gene. But, I'll check with Debbie and see where they're at another one over on, Longfellow on the south side of 90. You know, been waiting on one in there as well.
And then, I know we had talked about the drainage issues being taken care of before we can do the revamping or repaving the streets,
St. George,
over there on St. George.
400 St. George, yes.
Where are we on those drainage projects?
Well, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's a sewer project on this one. The leakage going up St. George, that's letting inflow in of that, so that's probably gonna be when we seal the pipes and everything, you know, go through and line all the pipes in there. And then we should be all,
Can you just give me an update of where we are when you give a
yeah.
update? Thank you. Nothing else.
Mr. Sullivan?
And we got State Street, same thing, 400 block
Yeah,
of State Street on that as well.
That's,
Mayor, Robertson Road, 10th Street, sent an email on that, ditching. But also, we need to get the silo color back there. A lot of them roads, the trees are growing into the roadway just about on a
This
lot
is
of
off
them.
Robinson Road, 10th Street.
Yes, sir. And then, just about all the roads back in that area need to be cut back, even like the main one, 556, when you're pulling off of some of the side ones, you can't see traffic coming good, cause limbs are sticking out too far. That's it. Thank you.
Lewis?
Yeah, just something to, I was gonna ask Mr. Riso, but something to keep in mind. So I worked through Caitlin yesterday, and thank you for sending me. So I had some issues going on the city website. I know we've changed systems, but I could not find the agenda packet. It was not, the agenda was listed, and I got a couple phone calls actually as of about 2 o'clock today that the agenda packet, I don't know if other council experienced that. Again, Caitlin did send me that.
You have to go to meetings. I've had the same
Yeah.
issue, so he can tell you exactly how to do it. Are you getting where the Granicus is pulling up?
So, I mean, I'm just going in as probably any other citizen is going through the City of Bay St. Louis website, meetings, going to upcoming meetings, and then you've got the agenda, yet the agenda packet wasn't posted. And I did get a couple calls that they couldn't see it either, but I did, I think there was visibility for some. I just don't know. It's got to be some kind of access issue. But again, we're new system, but I just want to make sure that is posted. Again, Caitlin did get me that yesterday. Maybe Mr. Russo, I'll go on another one. Maybe you can speak to that. One other, the mayor, I know we've discussed this in the past, but it's budget season. It might be a good time. Can we get with the rec director and see what it would, if we can get some bids or quotes on those 2 cages that are at the ball field?
He's working on that
Okay,
now.
perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just there. We were there pretty routinely and talking with some other parents just because of the way those poles are inset next to the batting.
He's going to move them out on the outside.
Perfect. Or even another, something aluminum. You just set them out closer away. Just do it away from the where anybody hits.
Yeah.
Because there was concern about just ricochets. So that's good to hear. Okay. Mike, just about so yesterday I had some issues accessing the agenda packet, going through the city website, going under meetings. It was just the agenda. I had a couple calls today that way I couldn't access the packet either.
I talked to Caitlin about that this morning, or I don't know, this afternoon maybe. I mean, going through the website, she was able to do it. I've not had an issue with it,
Okay.
but I'll keep testing it and just, clicking.
Can
I'll
you
make-
post the instructions on the city website for people to get to there? Cause I also received phone calls on not being able to access the same information. And I had trouble navigating earlier yesterday, but finally I could get on today.
So for y'all, city council members, are y'all going through the Muni code?
Yeah, I'm just going through the
Get
city
y'all, or are you
website.
going
I just
direct?
Go to the
straight
city website, click on meetings.
But
Okay.
you do need to be going through MuniCode, because if you look at the public, if there's ever anything that's confidential or something that's not released to the public, if you just go to the public meeting site, you're not gonna see that. So you guys need to be going through MuniCode
Yes.
to make sure that you see everything that's in your packet.
So-
Secret code.
So can we
If you
continue
go to
to
the
get that
homepage-
sent to us like we used to before we switched to make sure this is the final agenda? Okay.
If you go to our homepage, and one of the main buttons in the main center of the page says meetings, and you click on meetings, that brings you to that Bay St. Louis -mf.gov/meetings, and you click recent meetings or upcoming meetings,
Coming meeting.
agenda package, and I clicked on it and it opened.
it just wasn't, I talked through with Caitlin yesterday with
Yeah.
it. She saw it, I just didn't, again, and so,
The other
just
thing-
bear in mind,
Yeah.
The other thing to know is, so if somebody went right now to look at it,
it's
they
recent.
need to make sure to go to recent meetings. So if they're looking for our live stream, make sure they know to click on recent meetings and then they can play it live. Because if they just
Right.
go to upcoming meetings, like you think you're looking for tonight's meeting, it wouldn't be there.
And the
So-
audio video is off right to the right of it.
Okay, that's all I got. Let's see.
All right, Mr. Noblock.
I'm good today.
Well, good. Glad to hear that. I have nothing. Behave. Public Forum, Mr. Rodney LaFontaine, 869 Washington Street. Come on down. Price is right, buddy. Come identify yourself for the record. Tell us why you're here and what you wanted to do.
Rodney LaFontaine, 869 Washington Street, Bay St. Louis, obviously. Have a main drainage that cuts through my property, and it's been ongoing for many years. You know, come do something. They were supposed to put some kind of wash stuff in there, and it just never happened. Now it is up against my property, and so when they coming in there now to cut the ditch, they're just eating it all up, eating my property up. We need to do something now. The main drain is, I get it. I want to work with you guys because it is a main drain. Because obviously, if it floods me. So, but now they're tearing my yard up because they've dug out the easement. Can we get some kind of help? Can I get some kind of help to get that easement back to where I can get my yard and they're not going through my yard?
Is this on the back side or the side or both?
It's on the side of my house. So when you first turn off of Washington, you got the substation. All right, it's right there. That's the main part that's being dug out. And when and each time they come in there to cut, they're just dragging the thing, you know, and it's just eating it up. Matter of fact, they just come in there, put my stakes back in there, and they rip them up again. So each time they come in there and do it, they just keep ripping them up.
There's no way to cut it from the other side.
No, because the easement is actually on my side. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think Mr. Kenesha, I've heard him oversay that he was gonna look at, or somebody's looking for that easement, see where the easement actually was.
Yes, sir.
I think
And I've
it's
got
been
that,
surveyed,
yes.
so you got survey stakes, you know where your property is.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. Right now, where my property stake is, on the other side where it begins, it had, I think it's 25 feet for city easement. That's gone. It's completely gone. And
Okay.
now it's on my property. And, well, we'll get to that situation later, but last week they come in to cut the grass and, you know, they were asked to kind of be easy, and there were some choice words from that fella. So, but anyway, that's why I'm here now.
Yeah.
It's time to get something done, if y'all can help.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Mr. Mayor's the.
Got it.
Yeah, Mr. Mike's been there.
Well, I mean, that's who's,
Yes, sir.
they have to work with Mr. Kenesha, engineer and Public Works to figure out, you know,
What we
I
can do.
think it's too dang big to cover,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
It's pretty wide now. You could put a 20-foot boat in there now.
Well, I
Yeah.
know, right? So, what the heck yeah,
We,
I can fix stuff at work, but I
We
can't
can try
fix
to
this,
get the
buddy.
bank stabilized
sir.
back to where,
I know we put a bunch of rocks and stuff in there.
no,
years
sir,
ago, didn't
that
we?
never
They
happened.
never put.
It was supposed to, yeah,
Let's put
that's what,
riprap years ago.
right, it was supposed to happen, but it never,
Never
it
happened.
never happened.
Okay.
alright,
Yeah.
So that's why I'm standing up.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks, sir.
Doug, real quick,
Sir?
just talking about that reminded me, did we get anybody out on the drain on Webster?
drain on Webster.
Yeah, between, Omen and Webster?
Oh, and I don't know if he got to it to cut or not.
Okay. I'll run by that tomorrow.
All right, Miss Tammy, would you like to talk again? That's fine. Okay. Miss Kathleen?
Good evening, Kathleen Monty, 105 Sycamore Street, and I had no intention of speaking tonight. I didn't find out that short-term rentals was even on the agenda till I looked at 4:30. And I only briefly looked at the ordinance itself and didn't have a lot of time to digest it, but I was doing cartwheels to get here, and hallelujah, thank goodness, finally. I would
Can we
just
see
like.
that?
Pardon me?
Can we see you cutting them cartwheels?
Well, I might, you might have to pick me up off the ground, but, but I would just like to say, over the last couple of years, especially during this BSL 2045, you know, it came up over and over and over again about short-term rentals. And then when we, from citizens, and then when we saw the final report, there was only one little sentence on the very last page that even addressed it. And I was like, well, this ain't ever going to happen, is it? Because it's not getting any emphasis. You know, what the heck is the problem? We're the only city, I think, on the coast without a short-term rental ordinance. I have had council people and people in government tell me that they do not want to put regulations in place that tell a property owner what he can and cannot do with his property. Well, let me tell you something. Y'all do that every day. You know, we have the building department, we have tree ordinances, we have all kinds of ordinances that the citizens, when you come into this city, you are expected to go by these regulations, or you leave if you're not happy with them. I will tell you that being in a residential zoned area, when someone is renting a short-term rental, it is a business. In my residential area, it is a business. And so why people think they should not be regulated in some small, and to me, what I did read in this was not a lot of regulations. It was starting with a baseline. Hallelujah, if we get to finally start with a baseline and find out who in the heck all these people are. On my block alone, we have at least 3, maybe 4 short-term rentals. On the other corner, we have several. And they're all, you know, sometimes you get good people in here, and then other times you get people that just, you know, it's Party City. We're in Disneyland. We can do what we want to do. We're the residents. I am begging you to give us a baseline and to please put in a short-term rental ordinance. And then we can beef it up later if we need to. But please do something after 10-plus years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Alrighty. Mr. Jason. Engineers report.
All right, good evening, everyone. We have a couple of items to discuss. We do have one action item that we're asking for authorization on. We have received word from the Corps of Engineers that we are close to getting our permit for the harbor dredging. Now, this goes back to Hurricane Zeta. So we are going to go ahead and ask for authorization to advertise that project for bid. And once we get the permit, then we'll be able to get that out on the street for construction bids.
All right, need a motion to authorize the engineer to go out for advertisement for the Bay St. Louis Harbor dredging project pending receipt of permit.
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Hoffman, second Mr. Noblock. Any discussion? Vote to motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you for that. The next item, pickleball court update. They're working on
Oh,
scheduling.
excuse me, one second, Jay, I'm sorry. So when they do actually dredge, they pump the sediment and whatnot out into a barge or something, and they take it off.
Right now, we're gonna pump it and
Think
place
we'll
it on the beach near the
Pumping it on
railroad
beach,
track.
it's
And
sand.
it's gonna be kinda similar to the sand until
Right.
it's bleached.
It'll take a while for the silt to wash out the
It's the
bleach.
same as a sand pumping project.
Basically, right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we do have some requirements. If we get some unsuitable material that the county will not accept, we'll have to haul that off. But that'll be visually inspected during the placement process. All right, so pickleball court update. Initially, they had the court concrete being poured this morning. They had to move that to Friday morning, so they do plan to pour the court on Friday. It's gonna be around 4 o'clock, if anybody wants to come out there and watch them.
I'll drive by.
Yeah, I tried to
let
order
me know how it
concrete
goes.
this morning, and I can't get it for at least a week and a half because Buc-ee's is sucking up all the available concrete.
Yeah, that's what they're running into, is lack of availability of concrete. Everything's
Wow.
going over there.
I can imagine the amount there, right?
Yeah. Yep. So that's just an update. Hopefully we'll get the slab poured, and then after that, it does have to sit for about 30 to 45 days to cure.
Wow.
And we are working on some additional upgrades, for possibly some fencing and lighting, things like that. So we'll come back as that progresses.
Once it's cured, Jason, is it, we stripe it and play on it, or we gotta put a surface on top of the concrete and then?
Yeah, they'll have to do a
Surface.
surface and come back and paint it, stripe it.
When do the
Is that
lights come in?
Process.
It takes at least 30 days for the concrete to cure before they
Right,
can
but I'm
surface
saying,
it.
but once you surface it, is that like?
It'll be
surface
a
it
couple of weeks for that
to cure and?
to cure,
Be
and
ready.
then they can come and start playing.
So we're still looking at like October?
I think so.
When it cools
November.
off a little bit.
Yeah.
So when do the lights get
Cools off, but
installed?
it gets dark at 5 o'clock.
So right now we're working on.
Because it'll be time change.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying, it gets dark.
Yeah, it'll come in, it ought to time out pretty well with the time change for the lights to be installed. And we're working on some proposals from the contractor, to get those lights installed as well. So, we should come back to you once we have all that finalized.
Thank you.
Because it's not in the original bid.
Right.
Right.
It would be an
Oh.
additional
No
cost.
lights in
Yep.
the original.
So we're hoping basically at next meeting possibly to receive a donation that could fund the remainder of the project, that next phase, lights and fencing and everything like that.
Good.
So it'd probably be an accepting a donation and a change order at the same time.
Okay, canal dredging project update. This is for the canals in wards 5 and 6. We presented a phase plan for this, and we really don't have, not funding to do all of the canals, so we try to pick out some of the more, frequently used canals. So, we are working with a testing lab. We've had it scheduled a couple of times, and weather just didn't work out, schedules didn't work out, so we've asked them to try to get back on the schedule for next week to sample it, and then it'll go to testing lab. At that point, if we know it can be used for beneficial use material, it can go to a marsh creation site like the one over to Wolf River. Then we can start applying for those permits and seek the funding for that. If it is beneficial use material, then we can seek request money through Restore Act or some of the DEQ buckets. It's been submitted to the portal, so it's in there. It's just waiting for us to be able to tell them that it can be used in the Wolf River.
Awesome.
So, for the Wolf River site.
Cool.
And then I did have one thing I wanted to mention. We have been working on some flood ordinance amendments. Basically, the 50% rule, the conversation, discussion we had a couple weeks ago, we're looking to change that to put a few more options in the city's arsenal as far as what value we could use. And this comes from conversations with our CRS ISO auditor, and also with the MEMA, Jonathan Hughes. We've been working with him to put a little bit more teeth into that text, so we can enforce that ordinance a little better.
So it's more better defined.
Right.
Okay.
And you're going back to the one that was talked about a few weeks ago on like mold.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So what we'd like to do is add in there. Right now, we just say market value. What they recommend or they discuss is adding assessed value, appraised value, or insurance value. So it gives the homeowner some options as far as what they have available. If they don't give us any of that additional information, then we'll just go with the assessed value. But they also say that the market value or the appraised value is something that we could use as well to determine that 50%.
Okay.
The other thing, we want to go ahead and establish a 1-foot freeboard in our flood ordinance. We're required through the building ordinance, building code, and we are getting credit for it with CRS because it's building code. But just to clarify that, we do recommend adding that to the flood ordinance. So once we get all this text sorted out, then we'll submit that for review.
So we're already building 1-foot freeboard. We already getting a +1.
Yes.
It's just not no ordinance. It's just being done through the building department.
Right.
Okay.
That put us 2 foot above base level elevation.
Still 1
bill?
foot.
Still
Yeah,
one
just
foot.
1
That's what
foot.
I was asking to
Yeah.
clarify. If it's still just 1 foot. Okay. Yeah, because it gets crazy. I mean, the points that you diminish in returns from your point standpoint.
Mhm.
As you go 2 foot, 3 foot, your points, you're not getting you up to a level 6.
Right.
So
Yeah, there's a lot of other
makes no
activities you
sense.
have to
Yeah,
score higher on than just that freeboard.
yeah. So there's a lot of complicated stuff in there, but
Mhm.
2 and 3 foot doesn't buy you anything as far as points or insurance rebates. Good.
And Gene asked about an ARPA update. So the issues on State Street and St. George are sewer related. We're wrapping up the recommendations for that phase 2. which will be to line certain lines, to come in and do certain point repairs, and then line the manholes. I'm going through all the point repairs right now to see if, how much it's gonna cost, and kind of working on a cost estimate for that. So once we have that ready, we can come back and get authorization to advertise for those, fix the sewer lines, and then we'll come back and fix any kind of paving that we have to do. For the most part, we're seeing not many point repairs, not as many as I thought we would have, which is a good sign. That means we can line more manholes, line more sewer lines. And a lot of the point repairs are ones that we can probably line through. So we're not having to dig up a bunch of streets to get down there and fix the sewer line.
So we're looking at 6 months repairs done, or?
I would say probably within about a month, we'll be out for bids. And then it could, depending on exactly what we have to do in the contractor schedule, probably looking at about a 12-month project.
12 months. Thank you.
And then we'll see where the bids come in. We still would like to go through some of the lift stations and evaluate those. But the main issue is gonna be fix the sewer line, get rid of the I&I, the infiltration, and then we'll see where the money is and go from there.
All right.
Jason, did Sienna Lane start? And it says August 5th, but.
Yeah, they did. They actually started last Friday, but
Are
they've
they
been
gonna
in there.
start on the outlet part first and then move in?
They're starting right now, on kind of the ditch that runs by Bailey's, try to work on some of that area. It's drier in there, they can get to it easier. So they're gonna try to do that while some of their other areas, access becomes a little bit.
603, 75% complete turning lanes.
Yeah.
When you think
Well, we had to go
money would
back,
be
so we had a field review a few months back, and one of their comments was they want us to maintain at least 11-foot wide lane for the turning bay.
they didn't grant us 10 foot?
We proposed 10 feet, they wouldn't go for it, so we're revising the plans. What that means is now we're gonna have to have 11-foot wide lane plus a 2-foot wide shoulder. And that gets us more into the ditch, so there'll be some drainage improvements. There's some curb in the area that we're gonna have to tear out now to make it tie in. So we're laying all that out to see what if any, cost impacts we're gonna have. And we may have to bid some alternates in there. Like we may have to call some intersections alternate 1, alternate 2, things like that. So we don't have that layout just yet, but we're working through that with MDOT.
I have one other thing. So like when you did the Estabrook and St. John drainage project a couple of years ago, how is that, have y'all been looking at that? And has it been holding up well, since its completion? I just wanna make sure it's maintained properly. Do y'all ever check these projects afterwards?
We do we'll do a 1-year warranty inspection to see if there are any issues. I think there might be some spots that are holding water, there might be some settlement in some of the ditches. But for the most part, all the culverts seem to be holding up pretty well, all the drain inlets. We haven't had any issues with the drain inlets settling or shifting or anything. But I can get with Ronnie and the Public Works Department and go
Yeah,
look
I
at it.
just wanna make sure, cause that was a good bit of money and whatnot to fix it.
I haven't heard of any yards flooding or any homes flooding since then.
Yeah, you'll hear about those.
There might be some water in the ditch, but I'd rather it in the ditch
Yeah,
than
where
in
it belongs.
somebody's yard and somebody's house. But
It's really helped a lot, a
Yeah.
few of those houses that had trouble, in that area.
Okay, good.
Thanks, sir.
that's it, unless you have anything else.
All right, Mr. Risso.
Yeah, the first one was just I sent out a public records request ordinance to you guys. They have a document that has been being used by the city that's kind of more formalized it following the model public records request that the state law has.
Yeah, I've
So just kinda
started working
formalizes
on,
it and
I started
says,
working on this.
Here's
and
the
it's,
form. We also just, there is an online form currently.
Right.
That's available. That's usually one of the most usual ways people submit. Plus, we have a paper form. And then, again, if people submit email or phone, currently that is the way they do it.
Okay. I have questions on this. Can we hold this off to another?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean,
Yeah, more discussion.
this is one of those things that was on my desk when I got here.
Yeah, I just things in here would like
So-
to, I read the
Again, it's all
model
following state law.
ordinance and then like to read this and clarify, some of the things, some of the costs.
And I'll also send, the cost is what we're using currently.
Can you send us that,
Uh,
Mike?
Yeah, I'll send you the model law from the state.
Also all in your packet.
The current fee structures?
Yeah, it's in the,
The current fee
What we're
structure might
using
not be.
now.
I'll
That's
send
the-
you just a
Not,
copy of the
not what's
form.
proposed, but what
Yeah.
we're using now.
Yeah.
I don't think that's.
But it's the same 25
Page
cents,
70.
50 cents. That hasn't, none of that's changed.
I just don't want it to
that's
be
it, that's it.
restrictive. I want to always
That we currently
make sure that citizens can
They have
obtain
to.
information in a timely manner and without being assessed a large
And
heavy
that's,
fee.
that's the law. We have to.
Yeah,
But he's
okay, I
saying-
just
And
want-
that's why, if you read it, it's
Yeah,
citing
you-
state law.
You can't unreasonably deny. So what this ordinance does is it protects, yes, it protects the city, but more importantly, it protects the citizens because it gives them a definite mechanism. This is what I do. This is how much it's going to cost. This is who I give it to. This is it spells out everything that they need to know. So they don't have to go dig for it. It'll all be in Municode. It'll be there where they can see it. So it just makes things a little better for everybody.
So we don't have, so the way it's set up with the state is that they allow the entities to set the fee schedule, that's as long as it's reasonable, is that correct?
Correct.
And we have a fee schedule that we're using.
Correct.
Um,
Again, it was 25 cents per page, 50 cents per page, same language that you see. None of that's changed.
So that hasn't changed, and this is going off a state statute. I wonder the redundancy. Why don't we just go off the
So
state statute?
the state encourages entities to adopt these policies so that you have your own mechanism, because the state tells you what you have to do, but they don't necessarily tell you how to go about doing it. So that's what this ordinance will do is basically it gives accountability to the city to make sure that it has to be done and that processes are followed, but really just makes it very clean so everybody knows.
So I noticed without having an ordinance, then we are supposed to be compliant with what the state recommends is getting a one-day turnaround in terms of a request. That's,
No, I think
Oh,
that's, it's, yeah, it's.
yeah, it's one day. It's
no, I
one
think
day unless you
without
choose otherwise. So
ordinance,
what have we been
it's
following up to this point?
7, which is what
But we don't have an ordinance.
everybody typically, you don't have an ordinance, you have kind of an internal policy that I can't tell you, what what the history is there. We've never been able to really figure that out. It was there before we got there. I can tell you from doing this for multiple governmental entities, one day is not reasonable at all. I mean, you could have a this goes to Michael Riso, and he's out with his girls watching volleyball, and he may not even see it because he's, on a PTO day that he is perfectly entitled to have. So one day it's just not reasonable.
Can
It
we-
also gives you a form, and, it makes it very clear, because you get these things, I mean, you get them in emails where it's a rambling mess of people going on for 2 paragraphs over what they want, and you just really don't know. So it just helps define the process.
Can we have it more accurately defined in terms of what necessitates a denial of request? Because the way it is now, it gives a lot of longevity to the city clerk to approve or deny. Now, it does reference back to what's allowed based on the state guidelines, but I'd like it more defined on what necessitates a denial.
Well, I mean, state law is the city clerk is obligated to follow state law. If he does not follow state law, then he could find
What
himself.
does state law say about denial? I mean, I understand you're not going to give somebody like, things on litigation and whatnot.
So it lists out, there's certain things that you can give out, there's certain things that you cannot give out, and that is all listed out by
But if
the
our
Mississippi Public Records Act.
If our goal is to make it more concise and more easily ready for constituents, citizens, I would think that it would be spelled out in the ordinance, so not to have to reference back to the state law, if that's what the
Well,
goal is to make
I
things
believe,
more
Kyle,
concise.
that's written like that because as technology and as things grow, the Mississippi Public Records Request Act could constantly change. So what that does is just make sure to cite you back to a law that's ever changing, so your ordinance doesn't get outdated by Mississippi law.
Yeah, we're fine. I mean, yes, thank you. Yeah, I think, yeah, please come forward real quickly. Yeah, I mean, we have to work on this. There's still some issues, not issues, I just need to.
Tammy Curtis, 3100 Robertson. The only thing I was wondering about, because I'm sure they're just gonna have to go by what Mississippi FOIA is, but was the charges, because on, in the Mississippi Ethics, on page 34, Rule Rule 8. It says charges for searching, reviewing, and redacting. The actual cost of searching for and reviewing and, if necessary, redacting exempt information from public records shall be based upon the hourly rate of compensation for the lowest paid agency employee qualified to perform the task, which shall be multiplied by the actual time to complete the task. So I was just curious, so I did a sampling around Mississippi of their public records forms, and then I called to verify each of the ones I'm submitting. But right now, I think this ordinance calls for $29 an hour, and then if the city clerk has to step in, it's $50 an hour, and then if an attorney has to step in, it's $2.25 an hour. But I reached out to Pascagoula. Their research time per employee is $10 per an hour, and then Ocean Springs is $10 an hour, and let's see, Vicksburg is, and I have all these here printed out, is $17 per hour. Natchez is $20 per hour, so it is getting up, but we're still the most expensive that I could find. Of course, I didn't sample every town. Let's see, research for Biloxi is only $5 an hour. Diamond Head, I couldn't find their record like this, so I called them and I talked to Jeannie, the city clerk there, and she is the one, because I didn't know about this ruling about the law, about the lowest paid employee that's qualified. So she said their lowest paid employee, I believe, was $16. So that person is the one that does the research. I said, well, what if they wade into waters that they don't know? She said, even if she has to step in, it's still the $16. And they do have a $125 attorney fee if that need be. But anyway, I just wanted to present that. I would like us to maybe look at, because some of this, I know for me and some other people, if they had to have a few hours of research, that could be our grocery money for the month. And I just wanted that to be assessed and looked at and see what is the lowest paid employee.
Yeah,
so that's all I have to say.
Yeah, so state law, model ordinance, page 38. Public bodies should limit the cost of search by delegating it to the lowest paid employee qualified to perform the task. You know, so it does say lowest paid, but it qualifies, depends what area you're in, what office you're in. So I think there's some leadway to move, but it is, we need
Also, wouldn't the legal part of this come under the
retainer.
The retainer.
I would think
I mean,
so, but yes.
I'm not getting paid that. You as the city are getting paid that, because if somebody comes and I have to go through hours and hours, that does not affect what you as the city pays me, but it will, I would think, would want somebody to compensate the city for taking hours upon hours of my time if that was what was needed, the same way they would take Michael Risso's job or the
so
police
you don't
chief's
think
time.
this should come under the retainer?
It is coming under the retainer, but we're
we're
pulling
billing.
those resources
Passing that cost on.
that she would be spending other time for the city on what she does daily. We're pulling those resources.
Well, we
for
have
this
no
public
clue what
record
that number would be, Gene. You voted against that.
What are you talking about, Gary?
So in other words, we don't get a report of which she works on
I'm not saying.
under the retainer. I'm just saying, why wouldn't that be covered under the retainer?
It is covered under the retainer. She's not billing us at that rate.
We're billing a citizen.
We're billing the citizens to be reimbursed for the time that we are paying a retainer to an attorney to be on our clock doing our work for us.
But is that not the point of a retainer?
It is
Doing the
point
work of a
retainer,
citizen.
Kyle. It's absolutely the point of a retainer.
Yeah, so we need really.
I mean, otherwise, wouldn't we just give it all away for free, all of it?
So a couple of comments on.
We're not
that.
reimbursing, we're not getting billed by our clerk that's doing it,
Yeah, but
$16
the
an hour.
clerk's a
$20.
full-time employee and not a contractor that's on retainer.
So she would be.
So we shouldn't
We'll
get
just-
reimbursed,
open to the
so we
public.
shouldn't get reimbursed
Do
for
whatever they
anybody, is
want
what
it.
you're saying.
Well, we need clear
All I'm saying-
delineation of
what I'm
what's the
saying
retainer would
is
cover.
that-
and not.
No, you're picking on,
if you're
you're
saying-
picking on one position because you're focusing on the retainer aspect of it.
Well, right, because
And
it's
because
not
you were against it,
litigation.
but-
Well, if it was, it'd be different.
Gary, I'm not
But-
getting paid.
It's not
You're
something
getting
she's
paid.
getting paid
I'm
any
not
extra
getting
on.
paid. the city of
If we
Bay
don't
St.
wanna pass
Louis,
that
which is
cost
getting
along to the
paid.
citizens, we can take that out.
But I think we're
That's on the
missing the
council to
point that it's
decide.
still, the taxpayers are still paying for the monthly retainer, and then the citizen is also paying.
Kyle, if you don't wanna charge a citizen.
That's what I'm
not
saying.
Yeah,
If we wanna
common,
take
they
that
have a
out,
request, if
She's
you
the
so we don't get
city's attorney.
reimbursed.
She's your attorney, my attorney,
Right,
the city's
so-
attorney, but she's not Joe Blow's attorney out there just to continue to call and make requests that she's gotta go do.
So Gary, if I called your
Not
office
that
and said, I
personal
want your
attorney.
employee to come over and fix my sign because, he put it in, and you said, you know, Gene, I gotta charge you $50 an hour, and I said, no, Gary, I'm not paying that because I already paid you to put the sign in. Well, it's light bulbs that went out, it's not something that's your fault, well, but I don't wanna reimburse you for your time.
So,
I just want it done.
so we're gonna, so the
I
taxpayers.
mean, we can take
The
it out.
person who
but
wants the information is gonna pay for the attorney fees.
They're gonna pay for the attorney fee, they're gonna pay for the person's time that's making the copies.
Okay,
They're gonna pay for all of it.
okay.
Now, we can take that out, and we can let them
Yeah, I
not
just
pay for
misread it.
anything.
So is this the
So-
current schedule of fees that we're using now, or is that the proposed?
No, it's just it's proposed, but when you start looking at all the copies, police reports,
But
accident reports.
is that what we're charging now? Is that what we're charging?
For
As it stands now, without this ordinance, is that what we're using?
police reports, accident reports, copies, scanning, jump drives, all the way down. I specified the labor cost, and if you go back and just we got a payroll ordinance right now, and if you look at our lowest paid clerk,
Qualified.
plus their benefits, you're basically sitting at $29 an hour.
Right.
And it would be billed at quarter hour increments.
That's what I'm asking. This mirrors what we're currently charging.
Correct.
There's no changes. This
Yeah.
is it.
And also, I would just stress that in 2 years here, I have never had to add something for the city attorney fee. I have had to do it north of here. So it does happen in cities, and that's why Diamond Head, for example, has a fee for their attorney, and that's his hourly rate,
And, I mean, there's been
which is
plenty of
different
times
across
that
the
I've-
city, across the
I say,
coast.
is this a public record or is this, I mean, yeah, that comes up all the time, but, so I will speak to this from not Bay St. Louis, but from my other governmental clients, you will have people come in and put in very extensive requests that takes 40+ hours to go through confidential documents that they get that have to be heavily redacted. Say like if somebody came in and asked for a bunch of utility records, there could be confidential information. I'm trying to think of a good one that's just easy. Economic development projects are one that some of my other clients have gotten that I have to go through and look line by line and see what is protected and what's not. You guys generally don't have that, but other people do.
So can a citizen come in and inspect a record without paying? How's that work? I mean, I'm not,
How would she react? with that?
well, I know anybody, right? I know we have ordinances online, but if we don't have an ordinance in a book,
I would
So-
think they gotta pay the time to get the record, and if someone's gotta sit there with them, I think they should pay for that time as well.
'cause
And
it's
it's
just
very
unclear.
Even though they
situational
just reading it.
as to
But
what
again-
they're looking for. If they're looking for minute books,
Right.
I mean, here's your minute book. Typically somebody sits there with them for only the purpose of if you sit there and you leave a minute book from 1954 unattended and somebody takes a Sharpie to it, you don't have another one. If somebody wants to come in and inspect records, pertaining to the construction of the Sienna project, you might have to go, somebody's gonna have to go, okay, what documents do you want? Let me pull all these documents. Now, a lot of our stuff is electronic. Do you want it on a CD? How much time is it gonna take to pull it? Oh, wait, here's these contracts. Let me go pull it. So then you get everything together in one spot and you have it for viewing. I mean, these days, the joy with things going electronic is most of the stuff I've seen multiple that you've responded to and just politely said, here's a link to this on our minutes,
Right.
and given them exactly what they're looking for. It's on the internet. You don't need a public records request to find it.
Okay, yeah, I was just, and also then they do, have a section about waiver copying charges. Public body has discretion to waive copying charges for administrative convenience. Many agencies waive copying charges for small requests. For example, some public bodies do not charge copying fees if the request is for 100 or fewer pages of standard photocopies. Which I think is pretty excessive, but,
I would think that's excessive too.
yeah, but I mean, that's part of 8.3 on there.
Yeah.
In their model ordinance, it says people,
Well, that's just, yeah, it's use it as
agencies
an
don't charge.
example.
yeah.
And that,
Which
again,
is
that
a-
goes back down to your charges and what you get is, I mean, it just depends. Sometimes you get citizens that are out of control. Most of the people, I would say 99.9% of the population does not take advantage or abuse the public records request policy. Unfortunately, you just never know when you're going to get that one. And I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and talk about other clients publicly, but I could give you some examples of some atrocious public records requests that have, you know, gotten into the thousands of dollars because of the amount of time that it is taken to put it together, and thousands upon thousands of pages of documents.
All right, cool. Let's continue to review it, put it back on agenda for next meeting, please.
Thank you.
Everybody's good with that?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Weasel,
Just motion to approve docket of claims 24-038 dated August 6, 2024, in the amount of $465,085.60. And I had not received, I think, any questions. I think you had clarified one that
yeah.
what was
Heck is
Goodyear's
this?
called a different company. or
Yeah, who is this?
something. Who is this?
Yeah, yeah, I think I'll get all my answers, all my questions answered. I need a motion to approve docket of claims 24-038 dated August 6, 2024, amount of $465,085.60.
Motion.
Motion from Mr. Hoffman,
Second.
Mr. Salvo, in discussion?
The only discussion was the splash pad. Is that gonna be every month
Well,
fee or?
I got, Mike sent me the dang meter readings and I lost them, so I need to find them.
I got it.
See what they were.
Money them went out,
That's just water only, right?
just water only.
Okay, 'cause I-
Part of that building, bathroom. But this is the copy.
No,
That's
it's
all right, I just,
This is
usage.
going out and pulling the records where it's
Yeah, yeah,
being
right.
used.
just uses a,
MLK is not being used. Now, you can look on here. Most of our time is 40,000 gallons. MLK's got one day in this time frame from May to now with 20,000.
People using it. I mean, it's good that they're using it.
Yeah,
I just,
McDonald's pays, you know.
that was just my only thing. Well, since we have that bathroom on there, we-
That's
well, so is it a separate meter or are we paying sewer for all of it?
no, we're paying sewer for the minimum, well,
So I'm at-
this year was, 32 cents more than the minimum.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanna make sure we got them disconnected.
This one was minimum.
Okay, let's make sure we got them disconnected. That was my question.
At one time, we did have a leak on those, and MLK, but I think that's all been taken care of
Okay.
and all that.
good deal.
10-4. All right, no more discussions. Vote to motion.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, motion to approve docket claims 24-041, special date August 6th, 2024, in amount of $105,000. These are transfers.
Next one is motion to approve docket of claims as 24-041 special dated August 6, 2024, in the amount of $105,000. That was added, it's basically as $5,000 as a loan to the fire protection fund, and then $100,000 from municipal reserve to the capital projects fund for your projects.
Motion.
Motion.
Motion Mr. Salvo.
Second.
Second Mr. Noblock. Discussion. Let's vote to motion.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 5-0. What else, Mr. Riso?
I'm done.
First thing on the consent agenda, I forgot to freaking ask. So we're getting more flood insurance for the police department, but there's no contents. What are we doing with contents? We got $1.5 million on building, but I don't know do we have contents on our other $1 million policy?
It should be a
Yeah.
portion of that.
Well, just on this new one, it has building 1 million, content 0, deductible 500,000, content 0. So where are?
I think we did. I think when we bought the original policy, it had
Well, I didn't.
250
I forgot to
or
ask
something.
about it, and I got it on my list here. So just get an answer
can-
at
I'll
some
get
point.
that. I'll get
just
you a
an
definite
answer
one.
at some point. That's all. I'm good.
I think this is excellent.
Yeah, this
It says a renewal, it's the same policy.
Over and beyond.
I think it's below that. We had this discussion when we
So
saw
we
what
just
the
wanna make sure we
content
got it on the other.
For a new building.
$350,000. Consent agenda.
So on the consent agenda on 29 on the motorcycle, so the insurance was, I mean, the funding was provided by the insurance claim?
Correct.
Okay. How long is it gonna take to fix the bike?
Chief, you have an idea on that one?
I mean, that's a whole overhaul.
Item 24. So our grants, we had to do another amendment on them.
So every year, the state legislature has to reauthorize and reapprove that grant. At that point, all the ones that were done last year have to come back into this year's legislative act, and then they have to reaward them and do, what do you call it? A new amended grant agreement.
So we lost.
So we have 3.
So the $1.2 million we lost, we used it already. It went from $1.5 million to $361,790.
Which one are you speaking of on that one?
The restoration, City of Bay St. Louis, Old Town Depot revitalization project.
Well, that would be the depot, so yeah, you've
Depot.
already drawn down.
We've
That's the
drawn that
remainder.
down.
That's-
So
that's
that
the
we didn't
balance.
lose any money.
No, you
No,
did not
It's
lose
just the
any money.
balance.
Just bound.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we paid our match on everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
'Cause they don't give you, they don't redo your money. If you've already spent a 1.2, they don't give you another $1.2 million. They give you
Whatever.
300.
Okay, and then also says Harrison County, Mississippi. So I'm not sure who's reviews these documents, but
That's coming from Sarah Wright. Actually, I saw her yesterday at Pearl River Community College and said, I've got your 3 grant agreements on the agenda. And she goes, all right. She goes, well, if you see any errors, just send them through. Cause
Yep.
she's been sending thousands, a bunch of them through.
Probably so by the time you do all the different years.
yeah, no, that's I didn't understand it. The debris removal contract that's on here as well. Page 272.
You talking about the advertisement?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have not received bids on those yet. It's out right now, and so I think that's just your proof of advertisement.
Okay. All right, because a typo in there as well. Page 272, item 39. Says 5%, in parentheses, he's got 3%. Just need to make sure when we review that, or we understand what's, like that's on, for debris removal and disposal service, Bay St. Louis there, and after city number 1 general, in that third paragraph, it says 5%, and in parentheses says 3%. So just, it's good. I noticed.
Put that in the ad.
So, other than that, I have no further questions on the consent agenda. Anybody got any, comments, consent agenda? Any motion to approve?
Maybe I missed it, but is the cash balances on here?
They were on the 49, right?
49?
Nope. But
No.
it's payroll, wages, grant revenue, grant.
49's
No,
I don't see it.
no cash balances. Isn't that where it should be?
Have 1 cent.
Huh?
Shouldn't it be on 49?
Can you get us a cash balance?
Yes, sir.
But in general, it should be on that last spread reports?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I know, so, casino revenue was down pretty good bit last month, or in May, I should say. 179,000 versus 200.
It's
Recession,
another back over the last few years, and
yeah,
it's back to declining.
yep,
Gaming,
Inflation and
down
recession.
10% across the state.
is it?
That's pretty close to where we're at.
There, I mean,
And also, when Louisiana opened sports betting as well, I think we took a hit too.
yeah, but they're continuing to put money into property, they got a lot of big
They do.
plans,
They
which
got-
is,
they got some
which is good.
plans, moving forward on some now.
Yep. All right, need a motion to approve consent agenda items number,
I've got
20 through 48.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Salvo.
Second.
Second, Mr. Lewis. Any discussion? Vote to motion.
Aye.
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 Aye, motion passes 5-0. Motion spread reports on the minutes.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Hoffman.
Second.
Second, Mr. Lewis. Any discussions? Vote to motion.
Aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Ms. Smith.
I'm all good.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion, Mr. Salvo.
Second.
Second, Mr. Hoffman. All in favor? Aye, aye, aye.
Aye.
Said Popeye.
Do we don't have any, minutes to sign?
Yeah, we did beginning of meeting.
Yeah,
She moved them.
here they are.
Oh,
They stopped right there.
they stopped. Mr. DeSalvo.
I signed them and passed them to Josh, but he didn't.